Hello, welcome. It's episode 146. Scott's here, chat's popping, and we're talking about hoggy stuff and shows and the Northeast and all of the things that I feel like talking about today. So there. So let's do our sponsor shout outs. VetDNA.com for all of your testing needs. Use code hashtag shit happens with the exclamation point for $5 off the crypto panel. That's a good deal, because that's all you really need for crypto and snakes and lizards. So it's all squamates, $5 off, vetDNA.com. I just did 2 BOA arenavirus tests, and both were negative. Yay, there's much rejoicing. So I'll be able to sell those baby BOAs soon. I don't know, soon, whenever. vetDNA.com. All right, sponsors. Kelley Smalls on Xotics. He is a man of many talents. Ball pythons, boas, hognose. He's got hogs coming down the pipe. He has his Patreon. If you want to start to piggy bank up money to start buying stuff as they come up, Kelley Smalls on Xotics. I don't remember the clutches he said were ready. I've already forgotten, but I think it's mostly Arctic albino stuff. Thank you, Shane. Eileen, Bravo Zulu Python, a women veteran-owned breeding company. I haven't heard from Eileen in a while, so I'm assuming she's doing school stuff or finishing up school stuff, but should have lots of fun puzzle ball python clutches in the works. So check her out on Instagram, Bravo Zulu Ball Pythons. Justin Brill, Stoneage Ball Pythons. He's one of our Pacific Northwest breeding buddies. I don't know his updates either, but he should have lots of clown pied stuff. So if you're interested in picking up clown pied variants, please check out Justin at Stoneage Ball Pythons. Andrew from Powerhouse Pythons. He's doing Stimson's pythons, ball pythons, leopard geckos, rodents, and he is the Pacific Northwest distributor for Go for Cocoa, which is probably the best cocoa, let's be honest. Sorry, Chipper. But it's real fluffy, so I like that. So check out Andrew at Powerhouse Pythons. Gray Family Snakes, they have lots of clutches coming, lots of clutches pipping. So if you want to see, if you're into like VPI, and we won't talk about the Xanthic debacle of 2024 on this show, maybe on like the member live, because I have fucking thoughts. Gray Family Snakes. And Chris at Venus Reptilia. He's our most diverse sponsor. He is going to have a million things. Lots of pits, some ball pythons, ABKs, lots of locality boas. He's slowly updating the Morph market. And who knows? He also sells a chipper if you want the chipper in the Northeast. So thank you, Chris at Venus Reptilia. I did it. Thank you for waiting through the sponsor shout-outs. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Kind of like at critical mass right now, where I'm vending every other weekend, and all the snakes are out of brumation, so all the adult males and females are like just immediately wrecking their tubs every week. Mm-hmm. I got just my first clutch here that I just checked on and came out, one of the earlier ones that I'm expecting. I have a pretty late season. So just been trying to keep up, you know.
Late on purpose, or did you brumate late on accident?
Well, not really on accident. It's just that by the time after breeding and getting them ready for brumation and stuff, it just ends up kind of getting pushed. And that's how it started several years ago. And now I just kind of try to brumate them all the same time of the year. But I had an issue this year where I could not get enough refrigeration capacity for them, and I'm not at a point where I could brumate a whole room yet. So I basically had to do batches, not by choice, but because it was the most reasonable compromise.
Did you like? I mean, there's a lot of people in the South who do batches on purpose.
It drives me crazy.
Okay.
This stuff is. I really think you should try to make life easy for yourself when it comes to this. So if you do have issues, you're not so scatterbrained that you actually can take care of them. When everything, it just makes a lot more sense to me. Like everyone goes to bed, everyone comes up, everyone starts feeding. Everyone starts pairing. Everyone starts laying. Everyone starts feeding again. Everyone starts laying. Everyone starts hatching. When you do it in batches, unless you're just the most like aware, on top of everything person, you're like, oh, am I supposed to be feeding the snake or pulling it out or breeding it or collecting eggs or whatever? Once you have dozens and dozens of snakes, I was just like, this kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think the reason why it might work is like when you get to like the next scale, you can like systematize it. Like this rack brumates in September or something, and it comes out whatever this time, and then this rack is, so you need it's almost like the next scale up that starts to make more sense in. But
yeah. I just for my own personal preference, like I did it intentionally in batches my second or third year, and I just experienced those inefficiencies firsthand, and was like, I feel I like this a lot more being a farmer. Like spring comes, time to sow the crops, collect the eggs, hatch the eggs out. It's kind of like, this is what I like. The other thing though is I definitely do have a later season, but it also seems like a lot of people brumate their stuff early because they want to get eggs and get babies before,
mm-hmm.
as soon as they can for the year.
Yeah, I mean, partially I think that's like to be first to market at shows, but partially I'm like, maybe they're just trying to be first to market for wholesalers. Like if they're doing a species that needs pet store material, like that's the price point they're in.
Yeah, whatever it is, they're pairing eggs on Valentine's Day, but I'm the person that breeds everything, late because my snakes lay eggs in the summer and stuff. I'm trying to like kind of get it in something reasonable, like instead of doing like Halloween or Thanksgiving to Valentine's Day, do something more like January 1st to mid March. So I mean, that's kind of what a lot of this stuff is. Like one of the first one or two batches, I feel really makes a lot of sense to me. Pull them out, the first day of spring, late March. I'm like, okay, it is spring after all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to run colubrids like October 1st to December 1st brumation because it was Washington and it was cold. And so, like, like my exterior closet was already cold. So why not? I'll just do it whenever. But now I can't. My ground, I have a storm cellar, but I literally could not brumate anything in there until January, basically. Because it's not cold colder.
Well, that's a good point, too, because so my bull snakes, I actually brumated in a like plastic insulated storage tub with heat tape under my porch outside. Mm-hmm. And that was the kind of thing where you needed to rely on those January and February temps to get it basically at the brumating temp or like 10 or 20 degrees lower. So if I had the herp stat set to 50 degrees, I'm hoping that it doesn't really drop down to like below 30 or 20. So you're working with like a 10, 20 degree differential, which is sort of reasonable to do, if you're not opening the thing up. But I digress.
Sure. Yeah. It's always like a time and a place, but you prefer refrigerating hogs, or would you try hogs in a similar
in a room?
Yeah.
I think I am pretty sure that I'm moving towards hopefully brumating one or both of my snake rooms during the winter. There are a lot of advantages to it practically where, I have 2 6-foot tall wine fridges and a 5-foot tall true fridge. Those all need, $150 or $100 Rancos on them, and it still doesn't fit all my snakes. So at some point, I think I'd rather basically need to move my retics out of my big room and put those all in my bedroom. Mm-hmm. And then I can have a all colubrid room that I can then, brumate, and then maybe keep all the babies in the smaller room that I'm in now to keep them up so I'm able to continue to establish and sell them.
Would you use like a cool bot with like a modified AC unit? Or
Oh, that's a great question. I love the idea of the cool bot. I have no problem with it costing $500. I sell stuff online. And then you read the reviews and someone's like, boy, does this thing work? I had some problem with it and it actually froze everything that I was cooling solid. So failures leading to 100% death rate is not on the acceptable list of things I want to use. You know, these wine coolers, it's really great, man. It's almost like wine and snakes and colubrids are meant to be kept at the same temperatures. Their range is 50 to 70 degrees, like straight up. That's a temp range in all my wine fridges, 50 to 70 degrees. What's also really cool with these higher end ones, or if you get like a unit, perhaps like build a cellar out of it, is they even, they have in all their literature where they try to like, butter you up for buying this overpriced fridge, how little vibration there is with the condenser when it kicks on and on, so it doesn't shake your precious wine tannins or whatever as it's being cooled. And it also demands that it's not, doing this like 10 degrees up, 10 degrees down, 10 degrees up, 10 degrees down. People are like, say brumation didn't work for them or they killed snakes or whatever, but I'm also questioning whether they understand what a temperature graph of a refrigerator looks like if it's not properly buffered.
Right. I mean, you live somewhere pretty consistently cold, at least in like the hard part.
We get all the seasons. We get all the seasons.
Yeah. So
but we get a real winter.
Have you thought about not even building something inside and building a shed outside with a heater or something?
I'm kind of low on. I'm low on real estate. I think. So anyway, back to the CoolBot thing. The next big splurge for me as a homeowner reptile breeder is, well, first I'm getting my power panel upgraded in my house because it's like got way more breakers than it should anyway. I know I'm a little bit of electrician. I did like electrician work on like film sets and stuff, like running cable. Like I understand the principles enough how to not, overload a panel or whatever. Anyway, getting that upgraded. And when that's upgraded, it's going to cost me like, I don't know, like 15 grand to put a mini split on every floor of the house. I really only need one down here. But I hear the mini splits work very well. They're nice and expensive in a good way, where a lot of issues with a lot of these temperature control things are they have to roll the price of the thermostat into the total price of this unit. So this space heater, $40. How much do they spend on that thermostat? 30 cents or something. What other things? Like a normal air conditioner. Like I have a portable air conditioner back here that's plugged in the wall. It works terribly. It seems to only work in like 10-degree ranges. Like you got to put it down all the way so it kicks on, and then when it kicks on, it makes everything in the room like 60 degrees. So what I'm hoping to gain on top of this, extra control, is that you get higher quality electronics where you can actually set it to 78 and it stays like that. And then come winter, I'll just run it as an air conditioner. Set it to low 60s or 50 degrees. This is still pretty theoretical, but that is the goal I'm working towards, is having a mini split. Yeah.
Not a cool vibe. Yeah, I mean, I live in hog land where hogs live. It is not consistently, even if they go underground, the ground here is warm.
Yeah.
In some parts of their range, they're not like hard brumators. They're casual brumators.
I think that's very true. Where do you live again?
Oklahoma.
Oh, okay. I was going to say Texas or Virginia. I couldn't remember.
I lived everywhere, so it's okay to be confused.
I think that's very true. And I think that, unfortunately, the data we don't have much data in this hobby, and we don't even really have that great tools to collect it. But I am sure that a lot of these mysteries abound in the hognose world are due to the fact that you have every locality from an animal that covers like half of the area of our country, mixed in, and you're like, this one won't breed unless I brumate it. This one won't eat unless I brumate it. This one, I don't brumate snakes, and all of mine give me fertile clutches. And unfortunately, I think every thought I have just leaves more questions, and I'd love to talk to somebody that knows more about that stuff.
Well, have you noticed? Do you have Lucy's?
I got a pair of hets.
Okay. Have you noticed that like your Lucy's need brumation to breed? Because a lot of stuff, because you're still wild collecting legally in Texas, I think most stuff is Texas by percent. I don't know if you agree with that theory. But it's just
Texas
like people,
or Montana.
if the people are gonna F1 something, it's a lot of Texas. It looks like, or Montana. But I just don't see like Montana F1s ever sold on Morph Market. Maybe because nobody lives in Montana.
They're not sold on Morph Market because they are most likely bred into everyone's favorite double recessive morph combos they see. Because Dan Eby, I don't know any other Montana people, but I would have to guess like it's all Dan Eby's work, because I have a pair of localities from him and some other like locality-ish stuff. I knew that he was definitely like capturing wild stuff. That's how the Sable gene popped out. He had like 2 wild caughts that he put together, and this black snake popped out. Mm-hmm. He also did a lot of kind of like what I would describe as mad scientist experimenting, where he just had, he exclusively had that stuff because he, hatched it out. And I know, don't quote me too much on this. Like, I don't want to muddy a history or whatever, but it seems like he's also got his hands on like RBE pastel stuff and pistachio stuff, which I know very little about. But I suspect, and so, he first dude that creates the sunburst, first dude that creates the Mai Tais, first dude that creates, all these storm cloud. And they came from him, from his stock, from these snakes that were influenced by these localities and other morphs that were not, fringe morphs that were not heavily documented. And so I think there is, because of that guy and all the work he's done with these species and morphs, there just happens to be a lot of, perhaps a lot of Montana locality influence in it.
What do you think you've noticed, like Montana v Texas, or just
green.
Generic, like differences of any kind,
green.
Including brumation, just greenness?
Green as fuck in a very cool way. Green, some yellow highlights, nice, like bold, defined saddles. Some of them allegedly get very big. The pair I have is funny. The male eats year round. The female, I just got her eating again. Like, she only eats like 3-4 months out of the year. And I talked to Dan like a couple of years ago, because she's like 3 or 4 now, and I didn't get eggs last year. And he's like, "Oh, these Montana snakes have a really short window. It's like come out of that hole, mate, eat, lay, crawl back into the hole." So that's what I've been doing this time. Is I finally got her to start eating, but I did start pairing her as soon as they came out, and I'm hoping I might get something out of that. So other Montana locality stuff, I don't really have any other details about. I just think they're green. I have some Garza, Texas localities. I got a pair from Kevin Rhodes, or 2 pairs of them. They're nice brown, kind of twin spotty looking. One of them has a big, like a lot of yellow background to it, which is kind of cool, but they are very, very different looking. And neither of any of these snakes are red. If that's interesting to anybody.
Question. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Do you think Jungle Woma is Kinnerly Eye cross?
Oh, I'm not qualified to answer that, honestly. I think that stuff's interesting, and I call it, it's on the fringe end of morph / polygenic stuff, line bred, whatever. And I think all that stuff's cool, but my approach of it is to stick to some of the really like hardcore recessive stuff to try to understand, just so I know exactly what I'm working with.
So you're saying you're not as much of a polygenics guy as a discrete monogenic guy?
Yeah, for now, because I really want to understand what I'm working with. Okay. I didn't want to buy any snakes that are like, I want to, Sable Super Conda, not a Lemon Ghost RBE Pastel Extreme Red Purple Line Sable Conda. And I'm hatching out these snakes, and it's like, in kindergarten when you mix all the paints together and you just have brown, and you're like, why does this keep happening? And on top of the fact you're hatching out all this random shit, you can't explain why these things are doing this stuff. And
isn't that why it's fun?
Huh?
You might be like my arch nemesis. I'm like, that's why it's fun.
Oh, hey, the coolest thing about this hobby is that you get to decide what you care about.
Exactly.
I'll leave that for you. I would love to see you know every fucking thing on earth about it, and then can I say fuck on here?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to know every fucking thing. I want to know everything you learned about it because I frankly don't have an eye. I'm not focused on that yet, and I just like to kind of take steps slow before I'm, looking at a mess and wondering what I'm looking at. I think a lot of cool shit.
I mean, it's hard. Yeah. The polygenic stuff is a hard sell sometimes because you're like the discrete properties that I see, no one could see it technically or whatever. So like you're always trying to like market it, but polygenics is something unreplicatable unless you have the genes in it or you're gonna make it again somewhere else. So
and you put some time into it that you have an idea like.
Yeah, like the discrete morphs, they will always fall down to pet price no matter what. But it seems like in other species, may Eric with this one, well-bred, so like a polygenic line-bred thing is almost impossible to make independently. You can't go get hets and make it. You need to buy the line. And so like that, they're almost like more stable in price through time. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I know that's an interesting point. I like that. I think we can use all types of elements in this hobby where you have, single and double recessive gene morphs that ideally go down in price at about this rate over time.
Ideally.
And, then you have all the people that are, crafting these polygenic things, really doing what I guess I would call sort of like, not exactly test breeding, but it's like, let's put this together and see what happens. And a lot of cool stuff comes out of that. I'm just at a point where, year after year after year, I got all these snakes and your focus just kind of narrows because you just keep making these decisions and compromises to, for the greater good of your, reptile room and the way you do stuff.
So for the greater good of your reptile room, did you get rid of corn snakes completely? Or do you still have some?
I did. I bred them for a couple years and it was cool. I really love corn snakes, but I'm staring at them in the racks that I could have hognose in. And just while I'm there cleaning all these tubs for these snakes that, I maybe would sell like one at a show. It was just an executive decision where I know for a fact there are a lot of like really like good corn snake breeders out there, and I'm gonna let them do with their corn snakes what I want to do with the hognose. But part of it was I just wanted to breed them, even though it wasn't forever. Like I did them for 2 years. I'm like, I just want to make some smoking ass okatees. I want to make some nice okatees. I want to make some blood reds. And like before that, I did leopard geckos for a couple years, and that was kind of like while you're waiting for your snakes to grow up, I want to breed something and see what this is like. So they're just a lot of stuff. You feel like I do it just to make sure I don't want to do it.
Okay.
Like breeding
I'm
rodents.
big on corn snakes because I think they're the best pet snake. Period.
Oh, I love them. It's probably one of the first snakes I saw in a pet store when I was like 6 or 7 was all these baby corn snakes in this really like tall vivarium, kind of like coiled on branches and stuff, and it absolutely blew my mind with just how small and like delicate and pretty these things were. Like I remember having like a visceral reaction to it.
They're like, I don't know. I get it, like almost like jewels because their eyes are really big and they're really shiny, almost. Because like a hog, because they're keeled, they're not really shiny per se to me. They seem more.
That's true. Yeah, the sables have a little bit of sheen to them, it seems, but they're definitely not shiny. Yeah, I think so. The doing the corn snake stuff, like while I would have liked to continue that, there's also the reality of like when you do these shows, 1, 2, 3, 4 months, you're there all day, you talk to people all day, you get feedback all day. And the feedback for probably the most common thing I hear from every expo I've done is, wow, you're like the only person with hognose here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to capitalize on that and get the corn snakes off the table because I'm evidently already known for the only guy that's got hognoses in half the shows I'm doing. So I needed to just embrace the thing that, you know, I was more interested in. And, you know, so here's the thing with the corn snakes, I just made sure I gave away / sold them to friends and be like, you will follow through with this project. You will breed these Xotics together. You will make babies. You will take care of them because these are good ones. I spent a lot of time finding them from this breeder. They're really hot. You need them instead of some rando who's going to like buy the male or buy the female on the table, and then I got to get rid of the other one.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, people treat corns like, I don't know, table fillers. So they'll buy any adult pair, breed them, sell them, and then just like they're not even like that good of a pair to put together. You know, I don't know.
Sure. Yeah,
that's fine. I mean, so Hognose have been on like an absolute bull run for a long time, 5 years or something, right? But like, there's some cracks in the system. Like when I was in Dallas, there were a lot of Hognose vendors, and they were selling. But some people I talked to were like, when I sold hogs here last year, I sold X amount, and this year is less because there's just a lot of people breeding hognose now. Do you ever go like, what do I do if hognose become ball pythons? Like, where they become every table has hognose on them?
2-part answer. One, as much as it really feels like they are going to be the next ball python, they're not. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of this stuff's driven by investment, and investors are generally cowards. They want a return on the thing they're going to invest in. They want it to work. They want it optimized. The chaos of colubrids is not so much that it invalidates breeding them, not at all, but you're gonna. I see it now. A lot of ball python breeders trying to jump to this, and even jump to bull snakes, which really perplexes me.
And jumping to anything not nailed down that isn't a ball python, in my
right. And when you come from somewhere where you're like, I got a 1 male to 10 female ratio, I always get 8 to 12 eggs.
Mm-hmm.
I can plot out the next 10 years of my life on a piece of paper. You know, the hognose stuff is like, you know, on top of the different husbandry, you know, just like they eat a lot more, they're a lot messier. You know, you have all these wonderful things that can happen. You know, like the female can eat the male, female can slug out, female can eat her eggs. There is no crypto in ball pythons. The extremely sloppy and lax practices ball python people participate in, it's not going to last long if they treat hognoses like that. They go scoop up random sacks of fucking mite-covered snakes because they got a deal. That shit ain't going to last long. And that's where I am. I'm the dude here after you get burned and you want to buy something that has a level of control exercised over it that, you know, if I really fuck up, then I really fuck up.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, ball python people have learned some lessons about like nidovirus, for example, right? So
Sure.
like, but I do think ball python people live in a world that's very...
Everything works out.
No, I mean, that's not true either. They die all the time too. It's just like they're like hyper optimizers because they're investors. So they're coming to hogs expecting hyper optimization, or like the ability to know what the recipe is for getting females to not eat their males, which maybe, you know what I mean? Like that would like hurt their feelings to, like, I don't know, have half of their clutches slug out because they mistimed pairing by a couple days sometimes, you know, with colubrids. Sometimes you can just sort of mistime it.
My 2 best females, the one that laid you know, creates the Arctic and super Arctic sable lavenders, and my Conda het coral that made like 8 or 9 corals 2 years ago. Both of them gave me 18 and 23 slugs their first batch after knocking it out of the park the year before. And then I got some good eggs on the second clutches from them. But I thought that was a very valuable lesson in that even when you think you're doing stuff right, sometimes it just doesn't work out. And the level of things not working out optimally, I think, is going to be a problem for people expecting the same level of optimization as ball python breeding.
Yeah.
So sorry, what was the other? There's two parts of that question. Are they going to become big as hogs? And then what happens when everyone's breeding hogs? Is that the second part?
Yeah. So I don't think that hogs will be as big as balls, but I am concerned that like a lot of hognose breeders right now have been relying on, well, I'm the only hognose person at the show, therefore I get X sales, and this is how my business model runs, and I need it to be that way, whatever. But I'm seeing more and more hogs at every show I go to, and then I'm like, so how does a hog person stand out in a crowded hog crowd where the ball python people that have fled over and are like somewhat successful are just putting a bonus thing of hogs on every table with their balls, which is fine. We like diversity, but I'm like to me, it's like polygenics would obviously help because then you show that you're a refined, gentle man or woman who, can talk polygenics with a colubrid audience instead of just like I morph with morphs, but then also maybe even more diversity or something, even rarer lines, even do a Kinnerly eye. There's an Xanthic Kinnerly eye. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think that's a good point. The worst fear you can think of is definitely not like the worst case scenario. I would think is everyone magically has all the same shit as you and has tables full of stuff, and it really is like people just shopping by price. But the reality is, unless you already are primed from breeding something else, and you're
I'm sure he'll come back. You're back. Okay, you're back. All right.
Hey, are you there?
Yeah. So unless they're primed, and then you cut off.
Oh no.
Can you hear me?
Sorry, someone tried calling me, and now I can't hear you at all.
Get out and come back in. We were doing so good. What's up, chat? Gavin. Alicia says there's no specific recipe for hogs. That's the beauty and frustration of the species. Mm-hmm. All right, you muted yourself.
Hey, can you hear me?
Check. Yes.
You can. That's great because I can't hear you. Well, you can thank.
Go out all the way. Go out all the way, and then come back in. Here's a door, and walk back in. So, like, leave, and then come back in. I can hear you. Can you hear me? No. Sorry, everybody. What if I type it? Leave and come back in. Here. Leave and come back in. Like, leave the studio.
Well, this is so awesome. I can't do this now.
Maybe he can't see the comments. Oh, no.
Our smartphone's just the best.
Hey,
I never want anyone to ever call me again.
What if somebody, does anybody have his phone number? Call.
Well,
like leave, and come back in.
Is there any way I can leave this and come back?
Yes. Leave and then click it again. Okay, thank God. Thank you for tolerating what's happened, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Having fun? Living our best life? I tried to mime it. Sometimes the miming works. Sometimes it doesn't. But that's okay. We're having fun. Talking about Hognose. How's everybody's day going? Sorry I didn't look at chat too hard earlier. I think Andrew gifted some member lives. That's very cool. Thank you, Andrew. What else is going on? Let's look through his Instagram for fun. While he tries to come back. Oh, look, he's back. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm so sorry about that.
You're doing great. You're doing great. It's okay.
I was thinking about that. It's like, I bet some motherfucker's gonna call me while I'm in this. And I can't put it on airplane mode, right? Because then I can't do the thing.
Right.
Gotta love this shit. I need a dummy smartphone. Where were we? How can we put this train back on the tracks?
That's a great question. Just how can someone stand out in a sea of people who are maybe just like comboing hognoses and not trying to be a hognose breeder? Which, let me just be clear, a ball python person could be an excellent hognose breeder too if they like tried. As always. It's just sometimes there's like a vibe where they're just like, I come to the show and I buy the most expensive hognoses and I expect return. Okay, go. Yeah.
Well, that's because you also have, the good thing is that's not every person looking for a hognose, you know? You have all types of customers. You have all types of breeders. You have all types of stuff they're providing. I can say, you know, the doom and gloom scenario where everyone's like maxed out with animals, competing by price. I think we're pretty far from that. I think some people are going to have that issue. I think if you do, probably like Daytona, now that there's like a couple dozen hognose breeders, you know, other than the few who have a really big name, you know, are going to have that issue. But then also in the context of other, you know, a lot of small shows and stuff really don't have people, you know, committed to just doing, you know, hognose or something like that. And there's a lot of opportunity to stand up. And recently, another breeder who's actually been doing this just as long as me, started vending at the Have It a Great show, which I do every month. And we have totally different snakes. He's got some high-end stuff. He's got some mid-end stuff. It's really nice. And we're friends too. Like we kind of dig the way we, you know, keep our animals. And, you know, as it stands now, there's definitely room because me personally, I cannot, it is just not reasonable to offer everything. I'm focused on like a handful of morphs because I want to do something right, not do it a lot. And really what a lot of this, I don't have too many projects that are like cutting edge, but I'm just trying to reproduce, you know, good examples of things that people like. And, you know, so you have the availability issue of, you know, you may even have 3 or 4 breeders, but they all have different stuff, or they have different things, they kind of deals. You know, like someone has 2 or 3 clutches of all these, you know, combos, and they're almost like cursed with them because they have too much. You know, and it's like, well, that guy's going to be selling those pretty well for a while because he can peel a couple $100 off the price just to move it. Whereas I only have 1 on my table, and I'm just going to keep it at that price because I'll eventually be at a show they're not at. And it'll be the one snake there, you know, that one snow or whatever that someone's going to buy. Let's see, other people. Oh, this comes to a kind of conclusion I came to recently when someone was asking me to buy a bunch of hognose to resell, you know, which I don't really do. And even when I think about it, I regret even thinking about it. And it was really interesting because the guy's like, don't worry, I won't like, you know, sell them at the same shows or blow you up. I won't do any shit like that. I just need something for my shows to sell or whatever, you know, and I don't want to like buy snakes from you and breed them and then be here, you know, selling the same stuff. And I was like, whoa, back up. Like, I'm way more into you supporting me as a customer, buying my stuff, raising it up, and being successful with it, there's no threat in the world to this hobby or anything from that, because there is infinite room. Where the hobby stands now, when you're considering all the flippers and resellers and just all the stuff you're not seeing on the internet that would make these like Facebook group monitors like stroke out and die immediately. When there's all those guys here, there's so much room for people to do it right. Until there's everyone there is doing it fucking right and killing it and has like totally min-maxed it, I'm not worried too much about that. And a lot of those practices I'm not sure if, these people that want to breed a couple pairs, they're trying to get into something else. If they're taking the cues from the ball python stuff where they don't really have to worry about mites or nido, they may find themselves having issues with their animals. If they're just like, oh, I'm just going to buy this random snake on this table, I'm just going to buy this, whatever, put them together. So the chaos of all this stuff, I think, is going to, definitely affect, us hitting critical mass with this stuff pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, like, a lot of people will argue that the ball pythons are oversaturated, and maybe you would agree, but a lot of times I'm like, I would rather be next to a ball python breeder who bred their own snakes than
it's all about the philosophy.
A lot of other kinds of people, right? Because they're just like, they're happily caring for their snakes, and it's all the snakes that they bred, and they know all about them. Isn't that a better?
They're fully living up. Yeah, they're fully living up to their commitment as a reptile breeder to their animals, and that should be the main goal of a lot of this stuff.
Right. I don't know. Instead, I'm like, you probably could have a show full of hogs, but they're just less hog, more variety in general. So, like, it's easier to have 30 tables of ball pythons and each table be different because ball pythons just have more.
Yeah.
But hognose have more sort of polygenic potential to respect. So people could polygenic to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
Be like, this is the Texas line that doesn't need to be brumated. Period. Mic drop.
There you go.
And you're like, oh, okay. Like whatever. And so, like, maybe that's like a selling point or whatever.
No, definitely. And I think some things are better selling points for people who have been listening and thinking a lot on their own with this stuff. And then that's not going to work for the people. And then you have the type of customer that's ranging from just like, I'm just looking for the cheapest thing on the table to, I saw that morph online, I'm just going to buy it because I want it. Whether it's a nice version of that morph or a crappy version of that morph, you have a range of, people with their goals. And, it is definitely safe to say I have better interactions and sales with certain types of customers. And as a reptile breeder, the question I've had to ask myself is, how many types of people do I need to be the breeder, to be the guy for them to buy from?
That's the question. Like, who is your target audience? Really?
Do I need to cover? Yeah. And it is definitely a range. Because
you're a related question.
Yeah.
Do you find people who are looking for a pet hog are looking for designer morphs, or do they just want the cheapest normal pos head albino? Or whatever?
Well, given the context that the cheapest ones on the table generally are like Arctics or normals or condas, that ends up being what they settle on. But I can say that to the average person who is really wowed by these snakes, a lot of the simple stuff really does do it. Albinos, albino condas, albino super condas, regular super condas. It can be divisive. People either kind of love or hate super condas, but a lot of the people who are just looking at the stuff on the table and having a visceral reaction to wow, look at that snake. I think that's pretty, like super conda stuff. And that's approaching almost like the same, price point for a lot of that stuff. The $150 to $400 or $500 pet snakes, and I think that's great.
Would you rather be courting like a higher price point customer, do you think, or are they okay because they're
a little it's a little unclear how many high-end customers are out there, how many aren't already committed to just continuing to buy from the person that hooked them up. And with that said, that a lot of those $200 and $300 customers eventually become your high-end customer because they got a little bit of taste of something. You stood behind your stuff, you helped them out. And they're like, man, that was great. Now I want to try that with $1,000 snakes. And that's definitely a type of customer. I think it's kind of my favorite kind, because when you're taking a more modest approach to stuff and not going at breakneck speed, you're also really setting yourself up to not be ultra disappointed when like shit doesn't work out your way. You get to be pleasantly surprised. Like, hey, I got a pair of these hets. Some are pause het for something. Oh, wow. Didn't you know I hatched out a double visual in my first clutch? Like, that was fucking sick. Now I'm going to like buy some more of this shit because it's awesome.
Right. So you think people should not, I mean, the hard part is Hognose, the high-end morphs are expensive. So you're like, it by default, it must be an investment, but you think people should just sort of not think of an investment? Like, you almost can't have both. They either need to come down in price where they're all like 1,000 and under, and then it's just like, whatever, it's for fun. But
yeah,
there's really expensive.
I think with so much of this stuff, it's a balance. I think that if you can like spend $1,000 at dinner or drive like some piece of shit car that's $80,000 and needs $1,000 oil change, I am more than happy to sell someone like a $4,000 pet. And I mean, it's at the same time, I mean, artists don't make money. They have some rich asshole that buys all their shit. They
sometimes,
it's like you got butter up this rich person
selling their prints.
Yeah, but like the people who will have like, they have patrons. Before there was Patreon, there were patrons, and it was just rich people that thought you were cool. And then they get to be like, hey, I support this guy. Look how cool I am. So you do, there's always holding out for people who just love expensive pets, but that's not, the bulk of anything, when it comes to that. And then you have, the bulk of it is high-end stuff, gets sold for high prices, and they generally sell to other breeders. And I see this, and I don't know if this is my own personal bias, but I read it a lot online where it's framed in a way that somehow that invalidates this whole process. But I actually see it as a positive thing. Like, that snake you're drooling over that's $10,000 on the internet, you will never be able to buy that without other breeders investing in that stuff, producing more of them, and either in improving quality or increasing the quantity of this thing, so you can now have it as a $200, $300, $500 pet. And I feel like that is I like thinking about it that way. It's that kind of like some combo between being an investor and an early adopter and something. I remember
like the Ponzi scheme begets the whole industry in the end. Each Ponzi scheme for each species, because there's one for everyone, right? But so like that sort of begets like investment in racks and technology and it just interest, hype. Like if we were all just trading wild types with each other, we would literally be doing it like we did it in the 70s and 60s, where we literally like go wild catch it and trade it, and nothing is worth anything. And so there's no industry around it to support increasing husbandry. You're just trading. Which we should go back to that, right? But I don't know.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, or it made me think of something where you're right though. When people do have a rack of snakes that's worth $100,000, I would reckon they're going to take further lengths to take care of that, in trying to increase the quality of their husbandry or the way they operate as a reptile breeder, because the way it works is once you have things to lose, you now have things to lose. It ain't no big deal when you got like handful of snakes you're trying to breed and it doesn't work out, but fuck, I hatched out the world's first Arctic Sable lavender. Like all of a sudden it became really fucking important. I'm not letting random snakes into my room or letting people handle snakes at shows to give them mites, or just do any of the other just like sloppy practices that have gotten us into the situation now where any really committed, cautious colubrid breeder treats every snake that's not in their room like it's toxic waste.
Correct. Yeah. So I make people use gloves at shows. Like they can
That's
hold,
cool.
but they
Yeah.
have to wear gloves. And
I'm
they're
down with
always
that.
like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I'm like, crypto is like hand sanitizer is so cool to crypto. It's like, whatever, this is fun. It doesn't give a shit.
I prefer
so like,
prefer the term useless. Hand sanitizer is useless. It's really good
it's not
at
like technically
drying
they
out.
could hold the outside of the tub, and then like I could like take the snake out in a safe way when I get home. But it's like better if everybody just wears gloves if you want to touch things, because then you can throw them away and
Yeah,
nobody has to touch
and
anything.
or just not touching things. Like when you don't let people handle any snakes, you know, what's the difference between 0 and 1? You know, it's huge. You let 0 people handle your snakes, or you let that one person handle your snake that had an import shit all over their hands. You know, they're doing pet and zoo with all the stuff at the shows. They handle all the imports and everything, and they're like, "Oh, I used hand sanitizer. I successfully smeared all of these species like further across my hands, so I can now, you know,
right." And
touch your
their
snake or
version of
whatever."
using hand sanitizer is like where they go like this or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not like actually like cleaning their hands with any sort of interest or effort.
I think that there are right ways to do things, but I also think that it's really wise to not be lured into a false sense of security merely because it's what everybody does. If you
Right,
have,
there's a lot of like weird peer pressure because people are like, well, if you don't let people hold your dumb fucking snake, then they won't buy it because they don't fall in love. And I'm just like,
maybe you're not cool enough to buy one of my snakes anyway.
Right, I have a big sign. It says like, we limit handling because it can kill the fucking snakes. Like, do you want to buy a snake from me who will then go die?
I tell them,
but
I
like,
said, I don't
people
let.
are like, wow.
I don't let people handle snakes at my show because it's the only way I can ensure that my snakes are healthy. I can't get, you know, I can't ensure or guarantee anything if there are introduction of outside elements that I have not only zero control over, but realistically zero ability to test for. You know, we do have testing and stuff, and you can see mice with your eyes, but on a practical level, that's a tool you use kind of as a backup, you know, or in addition to your good snake keeping and selecting processes.
Yeah, biosecurity is the cheapest and most effective.
They go hand in hand.
Like good biosecurity practices.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's tough, and it does. So
well,
I'm coming to.
How do we make a show? Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I'm just getting to a point. I'm coming to this conclusion now, into my like 6th year of breeding, and it's that, for me to exercise the level of control over my animals that I care about, 10 or 20% of people I talk to are just going to think I'm a dick.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting to be fine. I'm starting to get fine with that, because at the end of the day, I care more about my snakes than some dumbass at my table putting his ball python bag on it.
Right.
You know,
partially I'm like, they don't understand or they think life is fine. Like they're in like they're literally ignorant to any sort of biosecurity issues because they were just never told.
And I'm happy to
like,
educate.
if you tell them, they're like, oh.
And you do see that a lot.
Sometimes they're mad because they don't believe you.
It's taken a lot of people skills, finding ways to tell people that they're wrong without hurting their feelings. It really is an art. And a lot of that, I think, is I just talk way too much, and I'll answer the question to a depth that someone wished they didn't ask. But they're like, hey, well, at least it seems like this guy cares about his snakes. He's not just being a jerk.
Yeah, I mean, I had a person at Reptile Nation, like, I don't know. He was one of those people who probably called mask face diapers. He had that vibe to him, and I was like, "Can you put on gloves?"
I'm sorry. Can you mask what?
He was one of those people who like he would call masks face diapers in the pandemic. That was his vibe, and I'm like, okay. I was like, "Can you just wear gloves?" And he's like, he's like, I already did hand sanitizer. I will never use gloves. And I'm like, okay, cool, bye. But he was like extremely like immediately, I don't know, antagonistic. And I'm like, Okay, well, if you buy it, you don't have to use any gloves. You can just go about your merry way. But it was that's only happened once. Most people are like, oh, okay, I get it. But I think this is like a marketing problem because shows are sold as like by the promoters a lot of times as like an interactive family experience.
Oh, do I have something to say about that?
Pet so many animals. Or what are your thoughts on a show promoting?
I think it's very fascinating that anyone that, like most hobbies, when you figure out how it works, you're like, oh, this really ain't all it was cracked up to be. But that's just reality.
Mm-hmm.
That's learning the plus ups and downs of everything and just how it is. Oh God, what was the question? Fuck.
Do you think show promoters are like artificially setting sellers up for a bad experience if they don't want it to be a petting zoo?
Yeah, it's definitely kind of frustrating. I'm sorry, I'm kind of drawing a blank here.
Because a show like a reptile show is now something that is like jack of all trades, master of none. It's a petting zoo. It's supposed to be education. It's supposed to be for sales. It's supposed to be for social media promo, for whatever. It's supposed to sell candy. It's supposed to sell rocks. It's supposed to sell plants. It's supposed to sell.
Yeah, and that's what I tell customers that
it doesn't. You can't be like, this is a high-end Hognose show. Do not touch Hognose. We respect the tables. We don't put our drinks on tables. They don't.
You need balance.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting dynamic because the vibe, I can say for a fact, the vibe created at a reptile show paints this picture that you may have not wanted a reptile, but you're coming home with one today. You see people like walking across with like their whole stack of deli cups. You see their sacks of snakes. You see people wheeling and dealing. I will add that, you know, when you vend these shows month in, month out, you start to see what's actually happening. And it's entirely possible that dude walking by with like 20 deli cups of snakes was working that deal out for like 3 months with that breeder. And they brought them to that show specifically for that person. But then you couple that with all the like kind of flipper pet table, you know, kind of quantity over quality people pushing that vibe that it's actually the most reptile shows are all about going in and impulsively buying an animal. And then everyone I'm talking to at shows, I'm like, well, unfortunately, it's like literally the opposite of that. You meet somebody like me, you get my card, you follow me, I give you some info, how to set a snake up, or we, you know, do a little back and forth. You get that preliminary meeting to just basically make sure the person's like not, you know, gonna rip, you know, is trustworthy or whatever. And, you know, I end up making a lot of sales. It'll be like a third or fourth or like fifth time someone's come up to me. And they're like, okay, I'm finally ready to get it.
Do you think you should, if that's true, not bring any snakes to shows? You know,
no,
what I mean? Like, are
you
we
want them there?
Set up high-end sales later, or are we trying to impulse buy cheap snakes now?
I try to cover my bases. I think that you have to bring all the snakes you want to sell, or at least, you know, reasonable for your table, to every show, because you never know which show is going to be the one where, you know, you have other elements like no one has the animals you have, but then also there are people that came, they're looking for the animals you have. Not only did they come, but they brought money and they're actually looking to buy one. So I've had Repticons where I sold like no snakes and it was absolutely horrible. And then I had ones where I sold like 15 snakes. And if I were to try, I don't know, it's like trying to figure that out is like trying to tell you what the weather's going to be a month from now. You know, and well, my key.
Like, what if I just bring a table with just like literally screens with pictures of my snakes in perfect conditions, the parents, and I could talk about them, and I'm like, here's the website, I will ship it to you later, and then I would never have to worry about re-quarantining or whatever, and my life would be easier.
Yeah,
because then I would be focusing on selling my snakes instead of protecting my snakes from people I don't know, laying on it, kids touching it, and I wouldn't have to hurt them by quarantining, re-quarantining, stressing them out, messing up their food schedule. Like maybe we would act more like real trade shows where they're not actually selling whatever, you know, whatever they're selling. They're selling the idea of becoming a buyer from their warehouse. You know?
Well, a good point of reference for that would be Garrett Hartle from Reach Out Reptiles, because while he does have shows now where he'll have a couple dozen snakes for sale. Originally, it seemed like a lot of his like really big fancy like setup would have just like a couple few snakes that aren't even for sale there, and it's like just to get the juices flowing. But even he was still bringing the animals. You know, it's like, look at these animals and like tell me what you want, and I'll like go make one for you in 6 months. You know, when they hatch out or whatever. I think that's cool. I like that idea, but I don't think vending at shows is so risky that I want to go to those lengths. I think not letting people handle your snakes generally. You can have, there's sometimes they'll let it, like someone will come in at 9 a.m. They don't own any other reptiles. They haven't handled any other reptiles, and they're like, I really wanted to see what it's like to hold a hognose because I think I want to buy one. I'm like, well, this does not, have any of the qualities that, or criteria that add up to danger. So you aren't allowed to hold a snake. I do these shows consistently, and try to get to know the other vendors and what's going on, and get also getting a table consistently. I really, I don't have full control over this, but what's been nice is I really try to have tables where I'm not next to another table like chock loaded with snakes. Like I rarely have like sketchy ball python flipper on the left and like whatever dead, here today, dead tomorrow imports.
Yeah, those are our favorite.
It'll be like, here's my friend who does cresties, or like here's my friend who does plants and isopods. Like there's someone next to me that does like sells friggin' Pangea products or whatever, and I'm like, this is correct. This is how you have a table.
It's the best, honestly.
Yeah.
I was between a mantis person and a plant person in Reptile Nation, and I was like, yes, fucking yes.
Yeah, so many things can be improved by properly balancing stuff out like that.
So you think? Can I? This is something that drives me fucking nuts. Like, why aren't reptile shows juried, and then like pre-formulated where the placement of everyone's going to be the day before? So like by juried, I mean like you can't have 10 ball python breeders and no frozen rodent breeder or frozen rodent seller. Like you have like the right mix. So when I did reptile or the Denver show, they did plant reptile vendor like a plant. They almost like perfectly arranged it so that it was the equal-ish amount, and
also not like put one hognose. I'm sorry, that's not fair.
No, you're
not putting one hognose breeder next to the other.
Like a craft show that's juried or whatever, or like an anime con, they will put all the crochet artists, if they have multiples, separate ends of the show, right? So they're not like directly competing.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think most people running shows, like if you have some sense, you're going to want to implement some, if you're going to go through all the trouble in doing that, you might want to implement some sort of philosophy on, balancing it out like that and having the right, vendor spaced out. As a, in context of the word juried, do you mean like having the other vendors decide where it is, or just the people running the show?
The show promoters take applications, and instead of accepting them first come, first serve. Sometimes it's like that. Like if you re-up, it's fine. But juried would be like position in the show, how many tables you deserve, and like maybe you're good for the show because you do lots of social media and marketing, or you have something rare that would draw people to the show extra. And so juried in terms of like they're creating a show out of all potential applicants based on all potential factors, and then putting them in a way that makes it most attractive to buyers or casual lookers, and also helps all vendors. Wouldn't that make a better show?
Yeah, totally. I know that. No, I agree. I know that definitely. Though as a vendor, I see a lot of the show promoters definitely have their own rules. It seems like across the board, no matter where you vend, they want to give exclusive rights to people that do feeders, and it makes a lot of sense. Like.
Right.
Is that true where you vend?
Well, so every time I do a new show, I ask about non-competes because I know that some shows are like that. I have yet to have a show tell me they have any non-competes for any class of stuff. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
So
but like,
I do Go. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, isn't her vertigo like that?
It is. Sorry, I had too much coffee. So Larry Kenton does this whole like circuit of shows, Havoc races every month. You got 2 York shows there every other month. He did the Menasses, which is now Berryville and Fredericksburg. But Havoc race is a good example of explaining this, where I started getting a table there. Well, first, when basically the first table you get, you're kind of going to be just put wherever there's a spot. Like that's just how it is. It's a little bit of like a pecking order. Like, yeah, the guy that's been renting 6 tables from me every month for the past 20 years is obviously going to get, that spot in the corner that he always does. Like, and that's, the way I see it though, it's like if you run a business and you're in control of something, that's literally the whole point of it. Is you get to decide who does and doesn't get to do what at your thing. Like that's the point.
Right.
So he really stresses, he's like, they only have one person that sells like pet supplies, cages, bedding, all that kind of stuff. And he said it to me on the phone like years ago when we were getting regular tables at the show. He's like, I'm not trying to be pet smart. Like we want one person that sells supplies, and I want animals on all the other tables. And you have one cricket or feeder person. This is me extrapolating a little bit, but no one breeds crickets. You got to like order some guesstimated amount of these $30 boxes you're going to sell at a show. I would be livid if I bought all that shit and there were 4 other people with boxes of crickets there that they have to turn around and throw into a dumpster. Like it's not, a sustainable, it don't make sense. And what, you get 2 rat guys there and then they just start doing the like each, my table's 5 cents cheaper game. Until so it's like okay, we can have 2 people make no money or one person do well because they're positioned to fulfill a role.
Right. It's not very, I don't know, libertarian or whatever. A lot of reptile people are like, I want to show up and fucking sell whatever I want, whenever I want. And so a lot of shows are like that, and it's fine. But like the craft show, like old ladies online, I'm like, y'all are fucking smart actually, because like they like try to formulate a plan to have each vendor who did get accepted make the max amount of number possible for the amount of humans so they get through the door. But then like it just means like not all shows can take all kinds of every show is for you, and I think that hurts people's feelings.
Yeah, no, that's true. I'm for me, just the thing that is, at least made this sustainable is just being consistent. Like I do the Havoc Grace thing every month, and I'll be here for when someone wants to buy all my snakes for some unknown reason. Just the person with the money who wants my stuff is here today. Good thing I came.
Well, you don't have to do a hotel, right?
I'm pretty adamant against doing hotels, with the privilege of having so many shows within a 2-hour radius. I'm trying to make the most out of all my local shows without having to, basically extend the gauntlet of things you have to be successful at before you sell an animal. I get in my car, I load the snakes up, I drive 45 minutes to Havoc Grace, I set the table up. You add a hotel into there. I mean, I'm suck at doing stuff. I always like leave my phone or my charger. It just makes me more stressed. It's like, not only do I have to succeed at getting there, I got to succeed at doing a hotel right.
Yeah.
I know that sounds weird, but I find I contribute so much of my success to being consistent. And it's all the times when you go out of your comfort zone that you truly are making that risk. And, you got to be fine with the fact that, that risk is going to, might not pay off or whatever, but maybe it will. But the thing that I got a lot sort of riding on this because I do it for a living. But my secret weapon is that I don't need much. I got a mortgage. I don't have any kids. I'm single. I spent like my 20s pretty much like grinding, just saving money and trying to building a life, whatever that means. Like living, I lived in this house for like a decade because I ended up buying it for my sister. So I like paid the mortgage for a decade, fixed it up. After years of being self-employed, 1 year I managed to qualify for like the most meager home loan. So it's like I'm all set. Like I'm very happy with where I am. I feel like I'm definitely in a privileged position for a lot of the opinions I have. They're very, idealistic. I'm able to make decisions that will result in me not making money for the sake of, my reptile keeping philosophy or what I think is doing something the right way. And that's really satisfying to me. And going out on a limb and trying to be Mr. Big Snake Breeder, doing all the big shows or shipping your reptiles across this fucking country and meeting them at the airport and setting them up to sell 2 snakes are not the type of risks I'm currently interested in doing, because I just want to keep doing my thing. I actually don't. I love all my little local shows. It's so great. I love the community part of it. I've met a lot of cool people. For every person that makes you kind of like appalled to be a part of this hobby who's vending, you meet other people who are like, fuck yeah, we got to figure out how we can make you replace this guy in the future. You got the fucking turtle breeder who like puts his hands on literally like every female in the building. And then you got your friend that breeds turtles, and you're like, dude, cannot wait till this dude's gone so you can take his place and not be the guy that touches every fucking person in the room. It's just slow, small victories,
So you did Summer Fun. That was a hotel.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's the one.
I know you say you don't want to do big shows, but maybe that's like step 2 or whatever.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. I think just not getting ahead of myself. I want to be prepared to do things in a way that I'm not so like stressed out and there's a lot riding on it or whatever. Flora Fauna, even though it was more expensive and was further away, it was still somewhat reasonable. I don't like to just do stuff for the sake of doing it. And it's even better if you can have 3 or 4 or 5 reasons to do something. So while in my most optimistic, mindset, I thought, well, maybe I made a lot of good impressions last year on people who weren't really like had plans to buy a hognose. And now maybe they'll come back and I'll just sell all this stuff and meet a bunch of other random people that want snakes, and maybe it'll all work out. But if that doesn't work out, I get to go up there and hang out with my friends who do Dirt Daddy. That's Kenny and Michelle, and their friends Jaleel and Mal, who I've been with at other shows. I got to hang out with Nick Esposito, who's actually another Baltimore dude, and have a lot of fun, being a pretty place. Also, shout out to Heirloom Geckos, Mike Smith, who has the most original name ever. He was hanging out there. So by Pete's Planet, she was pretty cool. Got to meet her. She's got one of my snakes. So you have these all backup things, to the main plan. And also one of them being is like, man, if none of that else works, I get the hell out of Baltimore for a few days.
What's that like? Living in Baltimore?
Kind of like it's the only thing I know, so it's a little hard to
I almost went to Towson for my grad.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck it. No. Because I used to be the healthy control for at the NIH in Bethesda, but also the addiction place in Baltimore. Because you could be the control, and so they would MRI your brain and then compare you to somebody addicted to whatever.
Oh, like you did studies where they pay you to.
Yeah. I don't like working, actually. I will do anything to get out of a real job.
Yeah, there's all these people out here that are like, people don't want to work. And I'm like, are you fucking stupid? Who the fuck wants to work? Especially when there are no jobs that give you a meaningful life in this country.
No.
That take care of you.
And some jobs are kind of fun, but
sure.
If I could get $2,000 for being the healthy control for schizophrenia study, and I just need to sit in an MRI for a couple hours.
That's cool. Yeah.
That's what I did. But that's all of me driving around Baltimore, right? And I'm like, Baltimore is actually really scary. So I'm like,
oh, I'm not scared ever in the city, but it also is so kind of segregated between nice and bad neighborhoods, and you can walk 2 blocks and go from somewhere really nice to somewhere really bad. But if you know where you are, things bother me. I'm gonna put these.
You know how to be good.
Well, you just know where to not the places where you would maybe get in trouble walking around by yourself at night are places you wouldn't need to pass through or go to for any reason anyway.
Are you sure? I got gas at a Wawa outside of one of them. And there was a lot of, I don't know, just people loitering. And I'm like, this is fine. But then I watched them rifle through the cigarette butts. And
butt surfing.
Pick the ones that still had a. I was like,
yeah, those are called homeless people.
I know, but like, should I park there? Should I get gas at this Wawa again, or is it safe? I don't know.
I don't know. I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna say that, and then like get my ass beat like when I go walk in front of my house. But I've also just got I got a good track record.
Fine, they're just like living their life or whatever.
Random acts of violence can kind of happen anywhere, because my neighbor was like chased down on his bike and beaten up by a bunch of kids. And was it because Baltimore City is a terrible place, or because like groups of unmonitored children that don't have parents do really fucking stupid shit if you let them?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Isn't the answer like yes?
Yeah, so it's not without whatever. I mean, I'm sure you can live. There's some neighborhood where you like can't have an intact windshield, longer than a week. But I don't know. I'm in a good spot. I have 34 stairs in front of my house. I live on some sort of like Lord of the Rings tower. No one steals my UPS packages.
What? That's awesome.
It's fucking great.
Yeah, that sounds cool already.
And every single person that's ever entered my house is like, "Oh my god, these stairs you have!" Blah 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 blah.
That's just enough, like I don't know, resistance.
No, I also live in a nice neighborhood.
Okay.
I live in a nice neighborhood too. That contributes a lot to it. But I have, it's been pretty uneventful, so I don't worry or think about that stuff a lot.
Okay.
I'm just kind of tired.
I'm a country mouse. When I go to a city, I'm like, this place is fucked.
My biggest complaint about Baltimore is just not how dangerous the people are, but how fucking lame they all are. After living in the city my whole life, like they're just like everyone who's still here that's my age. That it's like they call it Smaltimore for a reason. And you just keep running into people you met when you were like 19 and they're still like working at a bar or whatever. And, so the more they're, you're more of at threat of being surrounded by really boring people than dangerous people.
Okay, good. I mean, that's fine. That's fine. I'm into that. I love boring.
And there's not a lot of reptile people. If there are reptile people in Maryland I think is a really great state. It's got a lot of interesting things about it, but from Maryland, PA, VA, you have these shows, and it's cool because everyone comes from a couple hours or whatever away. They're all centralized here. And what you do see is that most people in Maryland or Baltimore, they're in the county. Like I'm like the only dude like in the city with the basement full of snakes. Well, I've met a couple, but they're about as low key as me too. Like you wouldn't know I breed snakes if you even went into my house because it's all in the basement. And I try to keep it that way because I think if, what I'm doing is legal, but with all reptile stuff, there's always a moral gray area where it's legal until you have a neighbor that's determined they absolutely hate what you do. You don't want
anybody really to know what you're doing, ideally.
Yeah, so I just try to keep it on the down low. Try to not be like, oh, that neighborhood snake guy or whatever. But I still have plenty of, real friends and real snake people come over and visit. And so I've met like 2 or 3 other people in the city that have reptiles. Just not on the scale as me.
All right. Yeah. All right. Emma's asking about Manasshole. So
Manasshole. I like that. I just call it man-asses.
Yeah, I call it that too. Don't you remember? I mean, maybe you don't remember, but just anybody from Manassas was a Manasshole.
I see. I just like man-asses. It's just phonetically more. I like saying it more. Man-asses.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So the story with that is, so it's Larry Diamondback Production / Maryland Reptile Farm. Those are the various names and whatevers that they book these shows under. And they had been renting that for X amount of years. I don't know, 10, 20. I really don't know. It was a long time. And they jacked the rent up to an reason, they're like, hey, rent's a lot higher now. And they were like, okay, well, we will, get other venues. And I'm being cautious really because I just don't want to say something that's not true.
Okay.
Or speculate because it's not I'm talking about someone else's business,
Yeah, you don't say. It's just interesting. They picked like Berryville and what was it, Fredericksburg?
Yeah. Oh, I want to be verbal with that because the way people like to be like, oh, well, this person said this, so that's the truth or whatever.
Okay.
That's the story. And for whatever reason, they do it. They did bi-monthly at Manassas, and now they do it bi-monthly, but it's like 2 months it's in Fredericksburg, then 2 months it's in Berryville. I don't know the explanation for that, although I think it's the Berryville one I can get to without getting on 495. And that in itself is just a delicious treat. Like not having to be on the north fucking, like if I die and go to hell.
Back like 70 and just drive straight back.
Yeah. Like, but if you're stuck on the northwest end of 495, like that's a form of, torture in my opinion. It's the most punishing like existence you can ask for in a car.
Well, Fredericksburg makes sense because I don't know, like you could cut down what was it, 264 or whatever. I don't remember the number anymore. And pop out.
So for Fredericksburg, you can go. Yeah, you kind of like stay down 95 or 295. And you kind of cut through if you're 495,
the West cut through. Vendors can like skip 95 altogether because they can go like the back.
Yeah. There's a few options
or whatever the fuck that was. I don't know. I used to live there a long time ago, but
yeah, but Manassas, the only way you could get there was, getting on the Northern Virginia part of the Beltway. And even though Fredericksburg is far, like you still get that heading to Richmond traffic, but it happens immediately south of the Beltway, and then there's just like mystery 10 miles where for all time traffic has been in a gridlock 24/7. I remember driving down there to like see a girlfriend in North Carolina in 2006, and it was the same exact experience I have.
The same cars too. Nothing's changed.
Oh my god, it's brutal. But anyway, I really appreciate Berryville at least being devoid of all that. Some of them have been good.
Berryville. This is what I was talking with Emma about. With like,
I didn't sell anything at one of them. One of them was like super whack. I can't remember if I've done one or two yet. But it's also new, and I give it the benefit of the doubt. Where like maybe the next one will be great. I need some level of optimism, especially when it fits into my kind of workflow or show flow. Where I have access to all these within 2-hour shows at my fingertips.
But when do you cut a show off? Do you have like a threshold, like fuck you show? Like how many times does a show have to let you down before you're like?
I've never done that.
Okay.
I'm committed to this shit. And
but if you're losing money doing a show, I mean, I guess you don't do hotels, but I have to do
exactly. Yeah, well, because they're all very low risk. At most I waste a Saturday and $60 for the table and some gas. And even with that, it's still the round table with my homies because it's the local shows.
Right. I guess that does change it. But for me, like I live 2.5 hours away from the nearest show, and they're all 2-day shows.
Yeah.
So like.
Oh yeah.
I have to have two hotel nights. I maybe could skip and set up on Friday, but I don't like doing that because that means I'm rushing, and I don't like rushing animal stuff. And so, like, it cost me $500 or so, $400 or $500 to do any show. Period. So I'm like,
and if that were the case for me, I would be way more concerned about whether I was successful at them or not. I mean, it's definitely the context is everything, and I'm speaking from just the spot I'm in. I feel like really lucky, and I like that I can do a lot of low commitment shows and then be pleasantly surprised when I knock it out of the park at a few of them. And also I get to be consistent, so I get to be the Hognose guy there. Or if I'm not not just the only one, but the one that it works both ways. You can demand your show promoters to increase the quality of the shows, curate them better, find better venues. But there are also things in your in your hands too that can improve the show. And, you know, by doing all Larry's shows, I think that I'm personally trying to improve the overall quality by being a quality vendor there and making connections with people that I support and referring people to those people I support to try to like, you know, eat it from both ends to where we get, you know, something good. Um, and yeah, I mean that's
I mean, that's a very I don't know. I mean, good for you. Sometimes I'm just like, fuck them. Fuck them. Like, they don't actually care, really, that your cost of doing business is whatever, because they don't, right? It's your business. They're just setting up the same show they've always set up, and they're not trying to make it better. So, like...
No, that's true. There's definitely a point of complacency with this. You know, when you just hit rinse and repeat every month, collect the money, do the thing, that categorizes as like a ton of businesses that are just, you know, kind of chugging forward.
Right. And maybe they don't think there's a problem because nobody's told them either. But having vended shows are like the Denver one that's like juried, half plant, controlled number of ball pythons, controlled number of other stuff. And I was like, that one's pretty good. Okay. That one was pretty good. So like, and it felt healthy. Even if I hadn't made sales, I was like, okay, there's fucking 6,000 people through the door to a little venue at a fairground.
Yeah, and this is all making me realize I think I'm really only qualified to have an opinion about this kind of stuff with the, you know, with the shows I'm doing, because you're in a, you know, that's what's interesting about this hobby. Like everyone's really in different spots and do it all differently. And someone out there is just killing it on Morph Market and never needs to step foot on a show, but they can't just be like Morph Market's the only place you should sell your stuff, because there's other people who don't sell anything on Morph Market.
Right.
And there's some people who are like, you need to, you know, travel across country and do all the big shows. And then some are like, well, lower commitment, lower disappointment, you know, and just be consistent.
Like what if I could convince you, like if you did a show somewhere, you could make, instead of doing 10 little shows, you could do one sort of spurt of effort and make $50,000 a show. Wouldn't you be like, I would think about that? Because that would like condense your workflow into one point of more work.
If that was an actual realistic thing, then absolutely. But I don't think there's anyone out there that guarantees you sell all your stuff. You know,
nobody guarantees it, but like, I don't know. Like there are definitely Hognoses sales at some shows that are in the 5 figures. Let's put it.
That's true. And some of that too they'll be repeat customers, or it's like really more like a pickup. I've sold a couple like $2,000 snakes at shows, and a lot of it is like, hey man, I've been following you on Instagram. I like what you're doing. I came here with a lot of cash. I want to get a snake from you, you know. And I'm like, fuck yeah, this is great. Like we're gonna take care of you. But that is just one of many types of customers that all add up to being like, oh, I did well today. You know, like some of the best days I did are like, well, we have the guy that's bought way too many snakes from me already rolled up and bought another snake. The guy that, like, you know, is basically a pickup went and grabbed their snake. And then a repeat customer bought a $1,500 snake from me instead of a $500 snake, because they like to be proof of concept.
Right. That's still a livable wage business.
Oh, yeah.
With those expenses. I'm just like, this is like,
I had to do all those other shows to get those sales, though. It's just if I weren't all the other ones meeting them.
To me, like, I don't want to do infinite shows because it costs too much and takes too much time. I'm not back home the same day, whatever. So like this year, I'm like, I've been sort of burned last year with a bunch of shows where I was basically breaking even or whatever. So I'm doing shows that are further away to figure out which ones are the best, and then cherry picking the ones that I think are run the nicest, where I make the most amount of hypothetical money, like see the most people maybe that are the most interested in my product, and then cutting out all the other fucking frass.
Yeah, I mean that would be great. I'd love to, you know, do other shows and know I'm going to move a whole bunch of stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm only one person.
Right.
You know?
That's what I'm saying. Like, the mental space of doing your show circuit takes up the space to discover if your business could grow better elsewhere. I'm not like, I don't know, critiquing you. I'm talking to myself mostly.
I guess so. But also, it's like if you're like a farmer with a farmer's market, you don't like move to California because that's where people want the celery or whatever. You know, like I'm just trying to be a consistent like pillar at the local reptile shows that can be like, fuck that guy, and fuck that guy. Don't buy any snakes from them. You want to be friends with me and join my Discord?
Yeah.
You know, like and that's worked pretty good so far. We have a Discord called Snakes Unhinged. So all the local homies. It's I'm gonna give a shout out right now. It's Roots, Scoots, and Scales, which are Stacy and Dan. They do she does tons of captive bred blue tongue skinks, all the skinks. He's got probably more rear fang venomous than most people around here. And Tarantula Land, another Baltimore tarantula breeders, heirloom geckos on there. But anyway, it's a great tool outside of like social media where we can actually have conversations that other people aren't like privy to or whatever. And we can coordinate stuff for these shows. Like there was a independent dude did a new show at Hershey, Pennsylvania. That actually went really well. But I know the guy because he vends at other shows. We vend near each other all the time. I'm like, all right, man, give me a table. But also, you know, Tarantula wants to do it, and Roots, Scoots, and Scales. Can you put all our tables together so that way we're not getting mites from each other, and we don't have to leave our tables to walk across the room to talk to our friend for 5 minutes that we like seeing at these shows on the reg. And also Foxglove Reptiles. That was another woman who does Cresties. And that's, I mean, this is like just kind of like the best I can do. You know, I can't change whether people buy snakes, but I can just try to generally improve my own experience and experience of other people that I'm like considered peers or whatever, and just trying to make some modest improvement in the way stuff is to where I don't have to be stressed that I'm at a reptile show because I'm surrounded by people who like are doing cool stuff and have healthy animals.
Yeah. Thank you for the
I just
super
want to keep doing this,
Andrew, by the way. All right. Yeah, I mean it's interesting. You're definitely one of the first people who've been like, yeah, I want to be the farmer's market guy. I'm like, most people are like, I want to maximize my efficiency because it's better for my business, and then move.
I don't know. This seems pretty. It seems efficient to me because, first of all, I would never talk to anybody if I never left my house.
Isn't that a benefit?
No.
Okay.
I'm like, you know, there's like that joke, like I'm an introvert extrovert. No, you're just an extrovert with extreme anxiety. You know, so, well, here, let me back up. When I was 12 in 1999, one of the first reptiles shows I went to was Habit Grace. I'm literally fulfilling my childhood dream of being like, man, wouldn't it be cool to like breed a bunch of really pretty snakes and then have people actually want them, and you get to go there and people buy them. You know, I'm like, it's the coolest thing ever. I always wanted to do it. And I don't know, that doesn't bear much on my you know, being a business or whatever. I just want to do it because I can.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting perspective.
I mean,
yeah,
I
was like, I went to Harvard Cross in like 2001 for the first time and only time.
Oh, that was a while ago.
I remember them like wiping mites off of boas. And then,
I would fully believe that. That 23 years ago, it was probably like every other reptile show. I would fully believe that.
Tanks and scary, like just like burn stuff in the glass aquariums.
Yep, and you still see that at, you know, local shows now, but it's like one or two guys, and for what it's worth,
push them out or elevate them.
Oh yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Well, push them out, or I mean, if you have a community of reptile keepers that have conceptually raised their standard of what decent snake keeping should be, like once people are no longer ignorant of certain things, it makes them really hard for them to unsee wrongness. You know, if you educate people about crypto and mites and don't buy that hognose that looks like a half-dead piece of beef jerky on the table, now they have something they can look for, and they can use their own observational skills to determine for themselves that these things I'm telling them are true.
Yeah, to me, the whole hobby has distinctly improved in the last 20 years. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's because there's more captive breeding of common pet species that we all like make fun of for being bred too much, like ball pythons. So, like, the average snake being sold is higher, and for some people, when it's an import, it's wormed, it's long-term captive, and so there's like a quality difference that is not cracking open a case beneath a table and bringing it out, having never even given it water and selling it immediately. That is still there, but those like relics of the past still exist too. And then
Yeah,
I don't know,
because it's just like history. Like, oh, I've just been doing it this way forever, and the standards will increase, but this person that has the 7 tables of imported snakes
right,
doesn't really,
and they've never
isn't
even
adjusting
been,
anything.
maybe even been like. So I don't think it's like the other vendor's responsibility to like enforce whatever new standards of care. But I do think that's why the show promoters, which is like, can have like a rule, like they're juried every year.
Yeah,
You're reevaluated on whether or not you fit the show, and it's okay if you get kicked out. But a lot of them are like, he's my buddy, he's been coming here for 20 years. And I'm like, yeah, but he brings
and
money
that's
every
unfortunately just
time.
how it works. Like back when I said, when you're in charge of something, you kind of get to decide what the decisions are. Like that's kind of the whole point. So there's some people you're never going to get rid of because they just rent too many tables, or there's no equitable replacement for them, and that's just a reality I'm living with. I mean, if I had to apply my principles on every reptile vendor I came across at these shows, I either wouldn't be doing this anymore or I'd be like in jail from like losing it on somebody. You know what I mean? So
I know,
there's this like,
but you could
uh,
apply your principles to the shows you've been. I mean, this is like a very weird esoteric debate, by the way. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like,
I like it. I'm into it.
like sometimes I'm like, should I be, if I go there, am I bringing the average quality up, or am I bringing myself quality down by like being at a show that's not well run?
I
Look
think if
like an
you're,
embarrassment
I
because
think it
I'm
only goes
here
up.
too.
I
Okay.
think it only goes up. I've never even thought for a moment that being some shitty show, aside from it being a risk to my animals, that's my concern. But aside from that, I think of if a show's terrible, I'm like, well, it's better here because of me.
Right. I mean, hopefully that maybe someone could buy a nicer snake, but then I'm like,
Yeah.
do I look like I'm among them? You know, like I'm one of them. So a new person is like, all of these people are the same kind of thing because they're naive anyway. And I'm like, oh God, am I like not cool? I don't know. Like that, it's very weird discussion, but and a lot of them are fine. Like they're like a neutral show. They're not bad nor good. It's who goes there. And so then, like, yes, you would be like helping to make it more popular by bringing, I don't know, different species or whatever there. But then some of them, like, I feel worse for being near whatever the fuck that is over there.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
even
I
from a
hear that.
biosecurity standpoint, from like a reputation. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, there have been reasons I don't really vend Hamburg, and it's kind of because of that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
And the Hershey one looks cool. So even though it's smaller, there's an aesthetic sort
and it
of
was good
divide.
vendors.
Yeah.
Um,
Lots of
I
captive.
I will say, yeah, I definitely don't want to really vend at a show that makes me ashamed to be a part of this hobby. That's my line.
Okay.
There could be
Fair.
problems there, but there's always room for improvement. Um, and so touching on this, do you know much about the Gettysburg Reptile Expo?
I know it exists, but I never went because it didn't exist when I lived in the area.
Picture a Repticon run by people who actually know what they're doing.
Okay,
As
so it's
far as
like pretty
size,
good.
pretty big,
Yeah.
bigger than your normal show. It's just it's a nice, clean looking building. I think that definitely helps psychologically a bit. But I don't really, there's a lot of vendors, and for all the vendors, I really don't see much stuff on a table that makes me like, grossed out to be here. They have a rule that they tell you, please leave your random bullshit snake at home and don't bring it here and drag it over
Yeah,
people's
thank God.
tables. They say if you see a vendor that has sick animals or mites, we really want you to bring it to our attention so we can fix that because we don't want that at our shows. And honestly, that's a show I really rarely do good at. I've had some shows where I like didn't even sell anything there, but I was still happy to be there because there were like 10 different people there. I was happy to see. And it's a nice show to be a part of.
Yeah, I mean that's like an intangible benefit. Sometimes shows are nice to be a part of a community of because they've made it nice. So
It's
like
just run pretty well. Yeah.
That's true, 100%.
I generally pick that over Hamburg. I did do Hamburg last time though, and that was because the Root Scoots and Scales people got like a double table. They had one to spare, and then so I'm doubling up on my adding reasons to justify doing that. It's like, okay, well, I can bend next to someone I know, so I know I'm going to be not next to miteflipper.com, and I can hang out with my homies even if I don't sell a ton of stuff, and I get to stare at their like 500 dumpy frogs that just morphed out.
That's cool. Yeah. I think I don't know. Like I would. I don't know. There's definitely a vibe thing that happens where you're like, I'll do the show even if I lose money because I think it's good for me or whatever. From like, I would probably do Dallas and ARBC because it's good for me for a promotional purpose to bring corn snakes to a national show and talk about how awesome they are, and not like pretend like they're not awesome. Okay, but. So I would lose money on that show, but I wouldn't do the same thing for a show where 1,000 people come through the door and there's no chance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I'm losing money every time, I can still sell corn snakes there, but I can't sell $1,000, which is really what I need, to cover my expenses and like pay me for my time.
I think the cost of having the freedom of a small business and working with animals, where it's generally regulated, is that there is no answer on how to be as successful as you think you should be. You can work for a company that tells you it's going to be all right and give you barely enough to survive, and you know what you're going to do every day, you know what's going to happen. Or you can have your own business where you just revel in the chaos of it all and enjoy every decision you made that got to be your own.
Right. That is what's fun about this as a business is like, if you want every day to be kind of different, it can be like your animal care can be partitioned, and I don't know, you can like pivot species. I don't like. There's always something to think about and analyze in the dark heart of like cleaning tubs in the middle of the night. You know what I mean? And so like it's that pursuit of optimization that for me is satisfying.
Oh, I love it. I think that this is the closest thing to an in real life crafting RPG game. I use a comparison all the time. I fucking love it. I cannot wait to meet some hyperactive computer programmer who also breeds snakes so we can turn this shit into a video game.
I think Tech was trying to.
That's tight.
Yeah, but I mean, this was.
But think of it. What if you rolled a D20 for your fertility and your morph options and what hatched and your gender ratio, and then you could even do a card game with it, like Magic the Gathering, but with snakes. Like instead of building up mana, you're building up meals, and then at a certain turn you breed, and then after a certain turn you get eggs. And I think half the reason people love this shit and people love video games like that is because it's emulating probably one of the most tried and true functions of a human being, which is to live in a seasonal way, where you put time and energy, you plant your seeds, you water them, you harvest them, you use whatever gains you can to do a better or easier job or bigger job following time. There's something hardwired about human psychology.
Right. It's dopaminergic in a way that games like tap into, but this is the way your brain is supposed to be.
Yes. So we're like a video games imitating life imitating video games kind of thing.
Because then you feel the satisfaction of the right amount of dopamine for like the cumulative result of effort, and then you're like, oh, you have to eat this year.
And I think that there's from there, I think it could be really interesting where I think for people that really just want to feed that need, they can just like decide that the hope would be there's a lot of people that shouldn't breed out there that decide not to because they can just play the video game because that's really what they wanted. And then there's other people that may just get so into it that they like, holy shit, this snake breeding game was actually a weird teaching tool for me to like learn how genetics work and stuff. And I can try this as a snake breeder in real life. I like thinking about that.
Yeah, I think like most people should not be snake breeders, even that are interested in being snake breeders, because there's probably just, I don't know, it's a lot, whatever. It's not, the market wouldn't work if every buyer was a breeder.
Absolutely.
Right.
When a lot of the sales are driven by that premise.
Nurturing something and like making it progressively better is very satisfying. So hopefully, I don't know, like if everyone could pick, a rare species of microgecko to do that with, at least as like a side thing for fun, that would be cool.
Yeah.
So, good for you. Then it wouldn't really matter like that your byproduct is like, a little.
Yeah, right.
We've been going a long time. I
know. We didn't talk about morphs at all.
Fuck. I know we messed up. Well, you'll have to come back at some point.
Oh, I would love that. Even though I'm your arch nemesis.
No, we're just
as long as you have fun.
I don't know. I'll be Fire Nation. You can be Air Nation or whatever.
What's that?
I'll be Fire Nation. You can be Air Nation or whatever.
Oh, is that a TV show I haven't seen?
Sorry, Avatar. I don't know. Whatever.
Okay. Someone told me I need to watch that. They said it's amazing.
Yeah, watch it. So it's just like get all your chores done, turn it on. Watch the first season slowly, but watch the second too with the knowledge that your chores are done, because you're not going to stop.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a good one to put in the watch when you're done pile.
Right, because there's like, I mean, like the first season you could watch sort of in the background while you're cleaning tubs or something. But the next
that's what the Sopranos are for.
Yes, exactly. The next two are
Sopranos. I think I just burned through BoJack Horseman. Mm-hmm. Can't tell you how many times I've burned through Always Sunny when you're doing the dialogue heavy stuff.
I mostly do like audiobooks now. I used to do a lot of podcasts, but I've gone through a lot of them multiple times. And so
I have now that's like all the different channels I surf between. It's like music, podcasts, TV, and I try to, it's like, locating the channel on the analog radio. I'm trying to figure out what particular phase my ADD is in, where I need I need to listen to like background dialogue of wise guys yelling at each other in New Jersey, or I need to like steep into this like descriptive like sci-fi book, and then I'm listening to that for an hour and a half, and 15 minutes, the last 15 minutes, I'm like, I'm not listening to this. Time to like crank some super fucking loud and fast like heavy metal,
right?
To activate that, and then I'm 20 minutes into that, I'm like, oh, I haven't been listening to this for the last 5 minutes. Maybe I'll put that podcast on now. So
yeah, it's definitely different vibes. For sure. Because your brain is doing different things. Because sometimes I want to think without other people's thoughts in there too.
And the music is probably the best for that.
Right. Then you can really think hard.
And then there's other times where I'm just really not psyched on having to clean a bunch of stuff, and I know it's going to be very monotonous. So I'm like, well, this is the time to disappear into a story.
Right. Then you can really tune it all out. Yeah. I've been liking listening to, this is the dumbest thing, but like artist alley vlogs, craft show vlogs of like how they set up and sell recently. Because it's like,
that's cool.
It doesn't, it's like our sister wives of hobby, but they're not doing live animals, so they don't care. So they're like, I want you to touch all of my stuff, and they do all this stuff. It's very similar, but it's not the same. And I'm like, are we just a worse version of that? Like, should we be selling our stuff differently? And then I don't have answers to any of these questions, but I listen to their vlogs because I'm listening to them think about in-person sales, and I'm like, we're the same, but like slightly different. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, my main takeaway is I believe in a lot of this stuff that, more or less works, like breeding snakes, doing shows. I think the crux of it is getting rid of people who refuse to do it right and making room for the people who are committed are committed to doing it right.
Mhm.
I think that
Do
you'll
you
see
need
a
to
lot of
wholesale
improvement just
stuff?
with that.
I guess is my.
I
You know what I
I
mean?
don't.
Okay.
I don't. That's a commitment too. It's like I will feed this snake for a year and a half and put it on this freaking table every 2 weeks until someone buys it, because that's the commitment I made to produce the animal. The one time I sold a handful of like pet hogs to somebody, it turned out to be like a pet store guy who, first of all, the care of his animals is horrible. But in addition to that, I got to see one of my snakes in the deli cup that I gave to the guy with the label on it from some guy and his, clueless guy and his daughter come up to my table. It's like, I just bought this. Can you tell me how to take care of it? So that right there is like, if I sell every motherfucking snake I produce, that can never happen unless someone's just reselling a pet they didn't want. And at that point, that responsibility is completely on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't really want to wholesale either, but I make corn snakes, so they're not as desirable.
Yeah, I get that, and that's why I stopped, because I didn't want to provide fodder for flippers.
Right. I mean, the idea, the best case scenario would be like you're selling them to a pet store has good quality and is in a different state or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're selling them over there and you're over here.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily go over there, and that's cool for everybody involved. That's the dream.
I think there's a lot of quality sources for reselling and wholesaling in pet stores, but I think they are generally the exception and not the rule. And what I've learned in this hobby is like, I get just super duper conservative with like a lot of my advice or views on this stuff. Not like, not politically conservative, but literally conservative, where like, if you don't do a bunch of loose and fast, sloppy shit, you're probably not going to get burned as the people that have, discipline with, doing like wholesaling a lot of stuff, or buying wholesale, or, any of that. So there's a pet store guy in Bel Air, Maryland, who vends next to me at Habitat Grace, and I've like talked to him several times, and he's a guy that, he doesn't even keep snakes at his reptile pet store, because he's like, oh, well, then I'd have to have rodents. And also, if I keep snakes, I got to deal with potentially getting mites. And that was honestly the kind of perspective I really respect. And, I actually have a lot of quotes like printed out here that kind of like apply to, my philosophy on this stuff. But one of my favorite quotes from the book series, The Expanse, is that you can't mix the cream back out of the coffee.
Mm-hmm.
You can always, if you haven't made a move yet, you can still make a move. You got a pet store and you're very cautious about keeping snakes because you don't want mites. Damn, you can always buy snakes in the future, but you can't, if you buy all this shit and get it in your place and you got an infestation, you're not good. You can't take the cream back out of the coffee, at least not without great expense, either great expense and damage to your business, or passing your problems along to your customers.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I respected that. I'm like, well, if you have no snakes, I can sell you like a handful of pets, give me exclusive rights. So if people have issues with their animals, you have someone you can talk to about them. And as soon as you don't do that, I can't make that offer anymore.
Right. That would be a pretty fair
Control
deal for you. And you control enough variables. And I think that's the problem with pet stores. Too many fucking vendors, too many lots. If they got one set of baby ball pythons from their best bud only, and that's all they sold, like, who cares? Like, I don't care, because like
that's actually sustainable.
Yeah, but the way they do it now, it's like 10 from this and 2 from that. Nothing's quarantined.
Oh my god, I could talk so long about that.
Somebody dropped this off at the front. I'll just sell that. I don't know. It's a bearded dragon. It could be. So
whether it's a pet store or a flipper or a wholesaler or whatever, this is the nightmare scenario I think of in my head. You got this back room. It's filled with all these enclosures, like just mishmash of your racks and tubs and enclosures and aquariums. Those places work in volumes. It's like, okay, I got 100 slots here with 10 snakes from 10 different people. I have now taken so when you buy a snake from someone, it is a good exercise to at least think about the idea that you have now that snake you bought has been exposed to germs from every single snake from that person's collection, and you now brought it into your house. So when you buy 10 snakes from 10 different people, you have now centralized an enormous amount of biological variability, whatever you want to call it, into one dirty ass store back room where they're not like steam cleaning or peroxiding the things. They're like, oh, I'm going to take my ungloved hand and wipe this gecko shit out of this corner. And hey, I just cleaned the cage. And that thing died or whatever. So I don't know, just like have the, like overworked, inexperienced, underpaid, 15-year-old do all these important sanitation things. And then I'll come back from this Reptile Expo where I bought a bunch of bullshit and I'm just going to dump it on all these tubs.
Also, so
yeah. Picked up a bunch of stuff from people unloading.
The model doesn't fall apart, and I think that's why it mostly does. And they focus on something like, I don't know, fish or whatever, because then like they're usually buying it from one like fish wholesaler who still has problems with quarantine and shit. But like, I don't know, people don't care about.
At least there's the traceability and the responsibility. It's like, hey man, I know you're not going to sell me everything that's healthy, but at least I know they all came from you. You're the guy. You can't blame it on the other guy I got shit from.
Right. But like, yeah, I agree. Like, so a lot of people are like, how Anthony Cabinet of Reptiles does wholesale lots of crested geckos to people, but they don't like bring in crested geckos. They just breed their own. And so a lot of people are like, I would never flip. And I'm like, some people can flip sometimes, and I think it's ethical. Like if you're a crested gecko breeder and you have your own, and you like Anthony Cabinet of Reptiles, and you want to buy a 20 lot of whatever to fill your table, I actually don't care, because that's like a single chain. You can quarantine them as a group. You can test 2 of the 50.
There's a lot of
lot
of room for nuance.
Right.
A lot of room for nuance within this. But from my reverting to like a conservative stance, it seems more it's the exception, not the rule. And those in the same way that, like 99% of people that buy imports were just looking for a cheap snake. And then you have one person that actually knows better. They're like, oh, yeah, I know there's a bunch of bullshit on this table. Look at that fucking thing. But I want that snake. I know what I'm doing. I have the drugs at home, or I have a vet. This is the 30th time I've done this. I'm actually probably the only person qualified here to buy one of these snakes off this table.
Right.
And so do you say don't buy imports? Is it easier to say don't buy imports, or easy to say that every single time someone asks me?
Yeah, it's, I mean, anything with nuance is hard, because I also think like I don't want imports to go away. There's a lot of species I still want in the hobby that don't really exist correctly, and we probably need to burn through a bunch. And that's
Dan and Stacy from Root Scoots and Scales. They're the opposite of me as a reptile breeder. They have all these cool different species. They've all got a lot imported, a lot they've got captive bred babies from, and now there are captive bred babies on their table with all this stuff.
Right,
and
that's
I
for the hobby.
That's excellent.
Right.
Excellent for the hobby. I think they probably have like just the best taste in reptiles. That's like the best way to put it. Like they just have so much cool shit, and it's just more about taste. Like there's no morph laddering or any of that business over there. It's just more like, hey, look at this. So Stacey's got a lot of cool skinks I've never heard of. Like she's got captive bred pink tongue skinks, zebra skinks, and all these other like really weird things I've never heard of. And I was like, damn, you are like my favorite person, because you can go buy the bullshit on the table, treat it, and then give me a beautiful, perfect, well-created captive bred baby. And I can just set that shit up in my house and tell people how awesome it is. And that's a problem now, because I got too many things that I want. Like every time I see them, there's the one fruit fly in here and it must die. Okay.
Take it out quick. All right. Kevin has one last question. Talk about the Sable Lav. Do you
all right, something I'm qualified to talk about.
Storm clouds or something, or what?
I got really lucky with that, whereas I hit on some pause hets to create them. It's definitely an interesting story. I will say, like, basically, coincidentally, I happened to get a leg ahead in what turned out to be my favorite morph combo. I think it's amazing. When it comes to morphs, we are now, I think, approaching a point where people sometime in the future we'll be no longer impressed that you managed to stack a bunch of morphs together to make a pink or brown snake.
Yeah, I think we're there.
A lot of these triple visuals. And now the really fun part comes because now it gets to be about the breeder's taste. Not only do they, it's not just about like, do they have snake with lots of morph that I can buy? It's like, you got the nice looking Sable labs. You got the, nice this or nice that. And on a taste level, I think, so this is where it comes to. When you're making morph combos, my personal philosophy is that when you're adding things up, they should synergize. 1 + 1 should equal 3, not 2.5 or not 1.75. Okay, I don't want to like talk shit on morph combos or whatever, because it's a lot of them suffer similar things. But let's say like lavender plus snow. I've seen some pictures of them. They don't seem like very discernibly different. But boy, did you spend a whole bunch of fucking money and time to make one.
Right. I think a lot of those are made just on accident, and then they're like, oh, whoops.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's that too. But also, it's like, how is there a market for a snake that, like, okay, this is a fortune for reasons you can't see with your eyes because it's not synergizing.
Because it's like a stacked het maker or whatever. So it's
sure. So that's
powerful, but not aesthetic.
And that's what I call breeding utility. There's a certain utility to these high-end morphs. And then even say, the lavender snow thing, it's very cool because you can get corals, you can get mercuries, you can get snows, you can get all three. So for me, what's exciting is not really actually about hitting that triple visual. It's about that you get this like fruit basket clutch now that everyone got to enjoy with, corn snakes for decades. Because you're getting just like, oh, this clutch is great. I got 12 eggs. One of them is an albino, one's an xanthic, one's a snow. There's my, pet level slop. And oh shit, there's a, I got mixed up. Say, snowburst, So if you do snowburst, you get that. You get a snow. You could also get, holy shit, I get sunburst out of this combo. I get storm clouds out of this combo. That's so sick. Think of all the snakes you have to get one of those from a project, and you just combined it, and now you get I love the chaos. I'm a gambler that doesn't gamble.
It makes still easier to build that into a pairing because like you never know what season people are going to be into whatever color of snake that you're not into. So like having
and then there's utility there too because if you make snowburst and people are like, oh, no one was into that, or people have enough sunburst. You can take your like snowburst and pair it to storm cloud, make het storm cloud, all storm clouds het albino. That's where I always see the Sable lavender project because I have a lot that are het for albino, or I got visual albinos that are double hets, and I'm really not convinced that a triple visual is going to like blow me out of the water. I think it'll probably look pretty cool. It'll have some utility for breeding, but for me, it's just also fun to get corals and Sable lavenders. And sunburst all out of the same clutch. And if I have some triple visual making females, I get to be like, oh, I made way too many Sable lavenders last year and not enough corals, so I'm going to put the coral males to these females and get more corals. And that's a different, I guess, type of utility where you can
yeah, and it's a fine utility. It's just like in the end, a lot of the like, lots of multi-gene corn snakes look the same too. They have the same problem. They all look like
ball pythons,
raw chicken or whatever when they're born, and they grow up to be white. And you're like, what a great pet. So like their only utility is as like a multi-het breeder to make clutches that are diverse enough that they don't overburden your market with too many of the same morph each time. And also, that's fine.
As long as you have some vision or idea, like if you don't have any idea what you want to do with them, then I can't help you. But if you know what those things are good for and able to take advantage of them by just having a better organized, tiers of snakes and variety to sell people. Yeah, so Sable labs are cool. So that is the case where they synergize. I think Sable plus lavender makes a snake that looks prettier than either one of them. The super Arctic Sable lavender is kind of crazy as shit looking.
Did you have one?
The Arctic
Junior has one. Do you have one?
Junior's got a super Arctic Sable Lavender Anaconda that he hatched out from a Arctic Lavender Poshet Sable male I sold him from the same clutch that my Arctic Sable Lavender came from. So it's also fun to be like kind of involved, for, somewhat in the doing of that. I thought that was pretty cool when he told me that snake proved out. And he's like, oh, that was actually the song that made that, Sable Super Moonstone, whatever.
Yeah, I have a Sable male Poshet Stormcloud from Kevin, actually. And I was like, and I just have a het lab female. And I was like, I might just like make like the Pos double and just keep them all. Because I don't care.
No,
I that
one, that wouldn't hurt you. It's definitely a slower way to it. But I will say there are a lot of advantages, even if you're making something that really kind of grinds my gears or whatever is people's obsession with making the most genetically intense animals just because they think you need to, go this direction.
Right.
What were you saying? It's lunchtime.
We're just talking about Sable Labs, just for Kevy at the end.
So making those posets. The advantage of that is those snakes were, have been in your care and they're quarantined, and those snakes that you hatch out are auto quarantined because they hatched out in your house. Like so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean like 40 corn snakes a year, even though I don't technically need them. Don't tell my husband, by the way.
And I think that's a huge value to. I would hate to have to sell a bunch of stuff I might need later and then be forced to buy it and then quarantined again. Like you get a lot out of just hanging on to your stuff. There's so many benefits to just keeping your snakes.
That's why this is the Holdback Rack podcast, by the way.
Tell me about it. I had 40 some holdbacks 2 years ago and I sold a bunch of them, but it is like
you can always sell it later is my ethos. Like
you know
what I mean? It doesn't cost that much for pinkies for like the little colubrid. Like it costs like 20 cents and
That's exactly how I feel.
Who cares? You can sell it later, but like right now you can't get it back if you sell it and you still want it, right?
Absolutely. And I definitely, I think I probably hold back too much stuff, but I think that's just an indicator that I'm really passionate about what I do and I care a lot about it. And I guess it's a bad thing for business or whatever. But I mean, what is my life?
Business because that's the future, right? Hypothetically. I think.
Yeah, right.
I think if people aren't holding back a lot, that implies that they don't actually care about what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Or they're more excited about the sale.
Yeah. Which is like the same. Yeah. It's kind of true for trades. And I hate trades because then I have to like re-quarantine them. But like there's some stuff.
That's the only issue for me. It's a quarantine issue.
Right. Like there's some stuff is so rare in this country. I don't want the money for it. I'd rather have more Dion's rat snakes or something, whatever, right? I don't give a shit. I have other things to sell. Just send me more Dion's rat snakes. I'll quarantine them. It's fine. So yeah. Yeah, I have Hognose. I have lots. They've been like relatively unviable for me as like a species because
I'm sorry, which?
Hognose, just Western Hognose.
Okay.
They're doing better now, but like I bought a couple and I bought a couple corns and the corns just obviously like just are better at living and breeding. And so I have way more corns now than Hognose ever did. But I do have some. But like I think about it all the time, like if the Hognose had done better sooner, would I be like full-timing it and living the hog lifestyle, right?
Yeah, because a lot of this kind of was, I took a lot of gambles on pos hets and I hit some stuff and I kind of made a gambling comment before where like I think there's definitely some energy in here where I can become a gambling addict if I want. Mm-hmm. So I'm just gonna put that energy into like buying pos hets and being having the amazing thrill of some shit popping out you didn't basically pay for. Mm-hmm. And buying pos hets, I continue to make this statement. It's that they're not guaranteed, but it's the only way you can compete with somebody that has a ton of money. There are like so many people that they have a lot more money than me. They got real jobs. They make more money doing this, and they have a real job. and man, they really fucking want a Sable lavender because they can't make one.
Mhm.
And I'll be like, hey, you want to buy these posets? I'll 3 Arctic, regular Conda, whatever, poset females, same clutch. It's like getting 3 lottery tickets off the reel in a row. You know, and they're like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, cool. Well, you want what I have. You're not willing to do any of the things I did to get what I have. So I'm afraid I can't help you.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Like time is money, right? But if you don't have money, you have time, so you can take the risk, do the work, keep.
Yeah, there's no like you can't. As soon as you can write a book on how to be successful with this fucking hobby is dead.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're all different. We have different goals. We have different interests. Like even down to the morph, like what morphs we want to work with. Like that is
like the version
wide.
Of morph.
Yeah, like all the freedom within this. Yeah, it can't. You know, it can't be both. It can't be like how can I blindly turn $1 into 2 without ever exposing myself to risk, and how can I get to make every decision I want, even half the decisions are exhausting.
Right.
And I don't know. You can just bury me in the snake room. You know, I'm good. I don't need anything. That's my superpower. I don't need shit. I need friends. I need other people interested in reptiles. You know, I need customers. But not that. I mean, not a ton. Like I don't really ever want to make like 500.
Partner?
Huh?
Do you have a partner?
No.
Do you want a partner?
I pay someone $15 an hour to dump and clean tubs
not
for
like
me.
A business partner. I mean like a.
Oh, like a girlfriend?
Yeah.
I would, if I were to be dating a woman, I would call her my girlfriend.
Okay.
I don't know if that's wrong now.
I don't know either. But like.
No, I'm a single dude.
You want your business to support like a family or whatever, women?
I'm sorry, are you asking if I want a family?
Yeah, you want the business to be scaled that big. Because right now you're talking about how you're like lean and mean. And I'm like, okay, but maybe you want to like breed or whatever. I don't know. Some people want to breed.
I mean, yeah, that's a whole other conversation. But I know down at the core, like me as a person who I am and was raised, you know, I had 4 siblings. Mm-hmm. My parents were together like the whole time. Lived in a pretty small house, very close to a lot of people. So in a vacuum, I thought I'd have like fucking 5 kids by now. But given the horrific reality that is living in America, has made, I don't know, I'm scared to take care of myself, much less a partner and a kid. The level of stability I would require to do that, I don't think I'd ever be able to achieve just grinding out hognose snakes one at a time. But there's always hope for just having a rich girlfriend. They're out there. Someone works in an office. They have health insurance. They are incredibly, really the best thing for me is to meet a very bored person because I'm pretty interested. I'm pretty interested, but you know what I mean? Like I'm up to so much stuff. You know, I work better with someone's just like, what are you doing? Oh, this is cool. All right, whatever. You know, than someone that's like doing the same exact thing as me, you know, like 2 struggling snake breeders trying to make a family on their own. You know, like rather just have someone who have a, I mean, I think that would make a good, reasonable partnership where you have someone with mine is stable in the sense that it doesn't change drastically. I get income, but not all of it is, the fucking fly. You know, I get income, but not all of it is like the kind that makes you a real human being in our day-to-day life. Like getting a home loan because you breed snakes is like, you know, not realistic.
What I do without a husband. He has and then when he retires from the military, he's going to have like subsidized health insurance forever. So that's like another
nice,
sweet thing. And then he gets his retirement. So technically, he could retire forever, and I could breadwin. I think it'd be really hard to both of us be trying to like boss babe breeding snakes in the basement because like it's not easy or stable or whatever. So and he likes his job and he's gonna retire, so that's cool. Oh yeah,
I like that comment. Right. Good 2 point check plus for sarcasm.
Right. Well, especially I don't know, people don't believe me, but most millennials know that we're all sort of trauma. We're like shell shocked by multiple.
I got a hot take on that.
All right, go for it. Hit us.
We are the, you got the greatest generation, you got the boomers. We are the loser generation.
Yeah.
We're all fucking losers. And
We're
it's
like
not because we
beaten
suck.
dogs or whatever. They've been beaten so many times. We're like cringing away from
generation of losers. Can't have kids, can't afford health insurance, can't even pay off your insanely predatory student loans that they almost made seem like you're. I swear to God, this student loan bullshit. I remember being in high school and how much they brainwash you into, leaning into taking out as much debt as possible.
Like, this is
they
the only way you're
fucking
ever gonna
brainwash you. You will be a loser. You'll be fucking nobody. You'll be homeless if you don't go to college and get this degree and take out this predatory loan that you can only pay off if you win the lottery.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that shit. I saw that rating on the wall. It's like people were like comparing all the colleges they were getting into, and I didn't even like apply for college. So I'm the middle of 5 kids, and when you get to the third, mom's like, well, you're really smart. You'll probably you don't really need college. And we kind of we'll help you figure out how to take loans out. And that when I heard that, I was like, I can always go later. My dad was like a sheet metal worker for a couple decades, like working in factories and shit. And he went to college in his 40s to become a gym teacher. And I'm like, I can always become a gym teacher when I'm 40. And he did that just to get health insurance for like his fucking litter of children.
Wild what Americans have to do to get health insurance.
It's shameful. Like it's absolutely shameful. Yeah. So, you got all these things. I'm like, I don't need to go to college. I'm really glad I did. And now everyone's jealous of me because I don't have student loans because I saw the writing on the wall and didn't want to be a part of this shit.
Being negative.
Oh, you asshole who didn't go to college. I'm like,
it's
sorry.
Fucked up. And people don't get it. Like Gen Zs, they're like, I don't know, mentally messed up too. Different ways though. But like the older ones, like a little bit older Gen X will be like, yeah, my life's fine. I bought a house at just the right time. And I'm like, and I sold it for the first housing crisis, and then I sold the net, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and you're just leveling up every 5 years. You're like doubling like your what you have. Like there's one dude, and I'm really happy for some of these people. Like there's an older dude. He helps a big snake breeder at my local reptile shows, and he explained, he's like, I used to sell this shit like 20, 30 years ago. Whatever, I'm over it. He's like, I bought a house in like Virginia Beach for whatever, sold it for $400K, bought a house cash in Pennsylvania with money left over, so I can just work for this dude $20 an hour doing snake shows and then just, I don't know, grow bonsai plants or do whatever the fuck I want. Yeah, I'm like, oh shit, that's pretty tight. I guess that's the Gen Z, lifestyle.
Yeah, and they're like, I don't know. I mean, their parents weren't that great, but like they aren't like whipped acting like millennials are. We were always like, guess I better go work at the coffee shop again because like I got fired from this office job or whatever.
Yeah, you mean just whipped by reality, like beaten
just
down,
like destroyed. I don't know, and I always complain about it. Everyone's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, if you're the right age, you're like an economic. I don't know.
How many of your friends, how many of your peers from your generation do you need to see absolutely suffering to think the system's not working? I think crazy.
The older generations are like, it does work, you're just not working hard enough. And I'm like, I've seen PhD ornithology trained people working as like a barback. And I'm like, okay, we have mismatches, and then they'll yell at you for being like, the wrong kind of educated, and you're like, well, what kind of education was I fucking supposed to be? And they're like,
well, that stuff's driven by like universities. Like they make so much money off, that stuff. They don't
and they made
almost the major's not important,
higher than ever before while we were in school because they needed to like lure in more loan money, so they added all this bullshit.
Yeah,
my school like doubled in price while I was there.
Wow.
And it was in-state public school, right? Because they needed to buy a new gym. And the gym needed to be 3 stories with a pool. And so they had to get all these huge bonds to like make everything cooler. And I'm like, it didn't really need to be cooler. Could have stayed.
Whatever. Here's a good little TED Talk snippet from a decade ago I listened to, where it's like the impetus of like college, they don't get anything if you get a job.
Mhm.
The only advantage, the only reason they have to graduate people is to get new teachers they can underpay.
Mhm.
You know,
That adjunct lifestyle.
yeah, like we
All of my
need
adjunct teachers were depressed too, so bless their hearts
like
because they were getting
we
like
exist
$3,000
to
a
create professors
semester.
for our own college to underpay. But
Right.
that's like, I'm not anti-education. I'm anti a lot of things that are, you know, you're being sold a bad bill of goods. You're lied
Mhm.
to about going to college, meaning you had a future, when really, at the end of it all, you're just one tiny piece of some person's financial instrument that they're gambling on in Wall Street. Um, and that's probably the most significant you going to college is, unfortunately. But then again, I got a friend, he goes to college to be an electrical engineer and he gets a job making 80K out of the door. So
Yeah.
there's a grain of truth to what you decide to do. Like, it is your decision to decide whether to go and what to go for. But it also, I think, it's very unfortunate we live in a society that's so uncompassionate that to do anything remotely good for the human race means you basically have to do it for free and get your soul crushed while you're doing it. And that's just
Right.
like done checking off boxes, you know?
Yeah, like it. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we could complain about this all day, right?
Oh, yeah. But yeah,
Mhm.
millennials we got some emotional issues, that's for sure. And we're a little
Right.
just kind of bummed.
Yeah.
But now it's like, I think a lot of us just really are dying for simple things now. Like, it's
Mhm.
not about, I don't want to be the person that travels or be the influencer, do all these exciting things. It's like, I want to be a hobbit. Like,
Mm.
living like a hobbits have life figured out. You
Right.
know, they know what's important. Friends, books, entertainment, food, all these like things humans like historically love participating in.
Mhm.
Hobbits aren't take fucking Uber drivers. Hobbits ain't going to college. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
just want to be a
there's
hobbit.
been like a big, I don't know if you even knew this, back to the land movement, because we had a back to land movement in the 70s, and there was another one since then, pre-pandemic, but definitely after pandemic also, but where people were like literally trying to homestead in some sort of weird way. But
Yeah,
but that sort of fantasy, it's just including the
it's a
fact
little
that people are,
disconnected.
yeah, like you shouldn't literally homestead, but the idea of like focusing on like easily acquired, not monetized hedonic pleasures like looking at flowers or walking in the woods with
Oh my
your
God,
partner.
I love looking at flowers, like the sounds of birds in spring.
Yeah,
Like
it's so
right now,
nice.
like go
Or like
outside, you
the
hear all the
wind through
chirping,
trees. You don't have to pay
the
anybody
way.
fucking
Oh my
money
God,
for wind. Okay. You know what I mean? It's fine.
I can definitely enjoy these things a lot more than when I was younger, and I'm pretty grateful that I can just enjoy all this free, perfect shit that has absolutely nothing to do with the human race.
Hmm.
Um, it's really great that it's still at least there. And I have a lot of cool like nature stuff, even though I live in the city. I got a really nice garden, little topiary thing out front, and some trees out back and stuff. And I just want to lord over my place,
Hmm.
on my tower of 35 steps or whatever, and just keep being able to pay my mortgage. And I mean, it would be really great if I got sick, I could be able to go to a doctor. That's pretty much it. Pretty tight. And in all my spare time, I just like game or like watch TV or do whatever, which I know isn't great. But where we are now, I'm like, well, yeah, like TV rots your brain, but social media turns your brain like into something else.
Paranoid
And
mess.
yeah, yeah. So it's like, well, I might as well just enjoy my stories. You know,
Yeah.
Sit
Yeah.
around watching movies, playing video games, whatever. It's like I can wrap my head around this.
Did you watch Fallout?
Oh yeah,
It was good.
very pleasantly surprised.
Right. It could have
I'm
been
not.
bad.
Oh yeah, and I think
I was
that
scared it
there's
was going
def-
to Rings of Power, and then I was going to be embarrassed for everyone in like Rings.
you did or didn't.
Not. I was like, what the
I
fuck?
was I wasn't in love with it, but I also wasn't like offended while watching it. You know what I mean?
I was.
Um,
I don't like it's like Lord of the Rings for like dummies. That's what it felt like to me. Like they weren't
that's what's
assuming
up.
that you could don't know, put two and two together. Why do we need 5 episodes of, is this Gandalf? I was just like, it's like, this is so like dumb. It's for someone who's really dumb, and it wasn't for me. That's how it felt. But it was like fine, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I think what helps with that is when it's pulled from a bunch of source material you most likely can't read or comprehend. It's fitting in, you know, all the lore stuff for me that you're not getting from like the straight trilogy. And it's really fascinating too. I guess it's like the appendix of the third book that it's based off of. But even off that, the Similarian or whatever, Silmarillion, I don't know. It's so weird because it's like he made a world building textbook about the history of this grand 3-part story about friends.
But does the show work if you know that the show is wrong? Like it's not
probably not.
Realistic.
But I'm not smart enough to read those books.
Okay.
So I am the stupid person you're referring
to. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all good.
Just like, that's not how it happened, which is fine, which is a problem, like a book person problem. But then I'm like, but it's also like stupid. Like none of this stuff was how anything happened. And I was like,
the Fallout stuff, I have a little more, you know, experience with the, you know, I can say it was good because I played Fallout games, but it really,
references to things
really reignited my passion for the games. I replayed Fallout 1. I bought Fallout 1 on Steam, and I played that. I'm playing Fallout 2. I've done Fallout 4, so I'm going to just do them all in order because I don't know. I'm like, now I'm just very intrigued. There's a lot about the aesthetic and, you know, world building choices of it. It's so weird to think that just like a video game has lore, a lot more lore than you thought, I guess.
Right. They'll reference each other, even though they don't need to allude to something for.
And even like the first game. Yeah, like they really do hold some of these aspects, you know, they keep it for the second game and add to it or whatever. And that's just I don't know, I feel like some sort of video game historian or whatever, you know, I just want to go back and like see what was the thing that made this mechanic change or whatever. And then in Fallout 1, they even have, this is the Snake podcast, by the way, and they have the bottom where it's like the black screen with green lighting where it's like, you swiped with your hammer, you hit Raider for 4 hit points. It makes me want to play one of those text-based RPGs from, I guess, the 80s or 70s where it's like, you're in the woods, go north, more woods.
They can be like very scary in their own way. Like, or very like visceral because it's all in your head, like reading a book. I've been fucking creepy pasted out in the middle of the night. 15
I like to time travel a lot too because it's like, you know, you can play some RPG from the 80s that's text based, and not only is it really difficult like that, but you can also be like, okay, I'm a 16-year-old kid in the 80s. I just got beat up from the boys at school. Now I'm going to go home and play this text-based RPG in my parents' basement or whatever. You know, that's a really specific example, but you know what I mean, though. I want to know what a 12-year-old kid who read Lord of the Rings as it came out, like what that experience was like. Because they didn't have video games.
It was probably fucking fire, right? You'd be like, this is the fucking shit.
It was probably the cooler shit, especially you don't have any point of reference. You don't have video games. You don't have like a TV in your bedroom.
You also don't have fantasy as like a genre except for fairy tales. So you're like, this is like fantasy for adults or whatever.
Yeah, you're like, but you're, you know, trapped in your room while grandma's babysitting you or whatever. And you're like, this is the thing I can do.
Yeah.
And I like playing like that, you know, doing time traveling like that. Or watching retro things that you didn't watch when you were a kid, so you can kind of like pretend like you're a kid watching it for the first time. It's kind of weird, but like I've never watched Miami Vice, but then I went back and watched it, and just the context of it being all this retro stuff, but also it's completely new to me. I can kind of like suspend my disbelief and pretend like I'm living in the 80s right now, as long as I don't look away from the screen.
Are you enjoying that process of watching Miami Vice in that way? Yeah,
it's pretty good. It's weird, like the show's a little weird. Like it doesn't really like it's just like watching a bunch of stylized shit. Like a lot of the plots and the things don't hit you as clearly as like a Law and Order episode or something would, you know, where they like really just kind of like this happens and this, and then they interview the guy packing boxes at the truck who doesn't want to talk to you, and then you do this and that. This has like way more, just like I don't know.
Have you ever tried to rewatch MacGyver?
That's a great suggestion. No.
So I have, and I used to think he was so smart when I was like 5 or whatever. My God, what a genius! But actually, like,
is it all like just fake bullshit?
Yeah, I'm like, oh God, he's not that smart. Actually, I would never make a suit out of, I don't know, like tubing to walk over ants in the jungle.
Oh hell, that sounds really
How did
funny,
he melt this rubber
ant suit? All right.
It's so funny to like reanalyze because I can remember episodes when I was really little. I was like, wow, he's so smart. He knows how to solve all problems. Wrong, actually. So like that part is actually really fun.
I have watched MacGruber, which is a great movie. Oh my God, it's like it's a MacGyver. Is it Will Forte? I think that's the actor.
Oh, from 2010.
From I guess it was on SNL. He was on like Tim and Eric stuff.
But he did a
like,
full length thing.
It's a 2-hour movie. It was an SNL skit where it's like MacGyver, but he's really stupid and inept, and he's a complete asshole. Right, and like, dude, awesome. In this movie, MacGruber, like the bad guy, he is not a bad guy at all. It's like a guy who's MacGruber just keeps ruining his life over and over again, but he's like convinced he's the bad guy. I don't know. It's pretty funny. There's an incredibly one of the best sex scenes ever in it, as far as it being unbearable and you not being able to stop laughing.
All right, I'll check it out.
Like some Team America level sex scene stuff. All right.
That was also a classic movie, by the way.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff in the world that's worth watching, so everyone should check it out. Especially old stuff for fun. All right,
some stuff just ages so well.
Yeah, like I don't know. I didn't watch Aliens until I was an adult.
I love the Alien movies. I think my bull snakes remind me of xenomorphs more than any animal I've come in contact with. And I think about that every time they like grab a rat and fly to the back of their tub and their long tail slithers behind them and like whips shit everywhere. Yeah, and every time I throw a rat in, it's like watching a little tiny human get sucked up an elevator shaft.
That's pretty fun. I think bamboo rats look like xenomorphs because they have like a really round face.
Yeah.
They're not as big and, whatever, but they have like this round face at the front. And I'm like,
I love those.
Like mine are Ripley and Hicks. My pair of broad-banded bamboo rats. Because I can't get it. It's not the right color, but it's like the face shape. But yeah.
Yeah, those are super cool. Yeah,
right,
Aliens. Yeah, I know. It's just like we're talking about movies now.
Yeah.
Just get rid of me.
We'll just have to come back. So we didn't really talk about bull snakes very much or like projects or whatever too much. We'll just I don't know, every 6 months. I just try to bring somebody back.
Yep.
If that's okay with you.
Oh, I would love it.
Right, cool.
We can talk more morphs more.
Right. And then if somebody wants to reach out to you to buy snakes or talk about hognoses or xenomorphs or whatever, what's the best way for them to message you?
2 ways. Instagram, boss_hogs, or Morph Market.
Mm-hmm. And what do you have available now? And what's some things you're looking forward to this year, clutch-wise, that maybe if people are in a particular project or whatever?
Sure. My Morph Market's pretty full right now. What's kind of been sitting on there are a lot of these like higher-end Sable lavender project animals. Like good males, a couple good females. There are a lot of things I want to move forward with, but you almost have to move backwards at some point because now that I'm hatching out these snakes, no one wants people want pairs. And you can't sell related pairs and have them breeding together because, especially with the lavender gene, you're going to have issues. So my long-term goal is just to be able to produce stuff that you can buy both snakes from me. Well, not even both snakes, just one of them, in that there's enough availability from other breeders that will actually match with the snake. But if you look on Morph Market, I kind of have like the most of any of that combo on there. I've produced the first one 3 years ago. I've been waiting for more people to hatch them out so it can become more popular. and people have a larger pool of project animals to pull from because I can't really provide all of them. Because it's all like, you know, somewhat related.
Yeah, I mean, people are too busy like optimizing. Like that's why, like, I don't know. I don't mind making 100% head Sable, 50% head labs, because I could go buy 100% double with Arctic from you or something male for some of them, and then like an anaconda version for some of them. You know?
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable. I think that just a lot of people haven't kind of figured out how to, you know, or, you know, that kind of you figure out the various ways to make something like that work until, you know, short of the breeder, you like just having like a full menu of options for you to pick and choose and of you know pairs, you know, that are going to work. And it's been tricky because I've been trying to buy Sable Lab stuff. So I have like multiple lines of lavender and Sable Lab, you know, to do this. And I think like a couple of years ago, I got one snake from Dan Eby, one male. And, you know, I bought like 90% of my hogs maybe from John Rice from Fathom Hogs. And I went down to Daytona with a big wad of money, and I'm like, I need some more unrelated Sable Lavender shit, you know, or else I'm just like kind of hitting a wall. And he's like, didn't have a single double head animal because he's more of like the cutting edge dude. Like he's always like, well, I made this, now I'm pairing it to this. I'm, you know, just trailblazing. And I'm definitely the other vibe where I want to provide, you know, project animals for these people so they can see, you know, have a good time. You know, and it was like, it's all good. Like I'm homies with him, but it took me a while. Like I had to like ask him, like, why don't you have these snakes? And he's just too busy doing other cool shit. So from there, like eventually I bought 6 males from Jeff Galewood. And now my problems are helped a lot. A lot of these males are also totally unrelated, like different lavender lines. So I'm really just trying to like increase the genetic diversity and have options for people. And then, you know, along the way of that, I'm going to get to experience the variability of like, I don't know, like I want to hatch out 100 Sable Lavenders because shit, maybe one has Sable, one of those types of Sables that turns jet black. Or maybe like you got one with RBE pastel in it, and then you realize like, oh, that's the hot shit. That's the one you should do.
Would you want to breed to, you know, a long-term captive wild-caught or F1s from wild-caught to make 100% heads that are, you know,
it's not out of the question. I haven't been forced to yet because I've lucked out. Like with Kevin Rhodes, he caught 2 Garza County, you know, snakes, kept them, bred them, and then sold me 2 pairs of the hatchlings that are captive bred. So I do have locality.
So you can animals. I think it's something we talk about a lot, like because you could be accidentally introducing like the desire for more toad eating back into a line, and they would need more scenting. And then sometimes you're like, well, but we need outcrossing anyway, so their eyeballs don't fall out of their head. So like, it's a balance.
I have a lot of thoughts like that, but it's like we lack, I guess, like the tools or way to collect data that can yield us any useful information until you have someone that's like really, you know, mental about it. Like, you know, they crossed 2 localities and did a blind test of like, this one eats toads, this one eats mice, this one eats whatever. And then even at the end of that, I'm not sure how much you can learn. I mean, maybe you can. Because I love these questions because they just lead to more questions. And I think that's just the way it be, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we're all working on, I think most good breeders are working on like making functional, but like, you know, anatomically correct.
Yeah.
Not
be
sustainable, but like it has to be a morph sometimes because that's the only way to have a business out of it for some species, and that's just a fact of life.
That's true. I do have a good my friends put it to me. He's a nuclear hogs. He bought a ton of stuff from me, and we talk about it's like, well, no, it's not all about the money. Obviously, it's not all about the money, but the money is a part of it. Yeah. You know, having it not be whatsoever about the money, everyone would have corn snakes and 10-foot long enclosures. But it's part of it. And it's really important for me to make money doing this because the more money I make, the more I can justify being a, you know, ethical, you know, snake breeder. Because I have the means to properly take care of my stuff. And if I can't be an ethical snake breeder, then I'm not going to be one.
Right. Like it's, yeah, hopefully people, wherever you are, And whenever you see a customer who's like naive and doesn't know, you're always like advocating for yourself being worth paying more for, because you are trying to take care of your snakes to the best of your ability at this time. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they literally have no
it's
idea.
like
I sell core snakes against like Glades Herp, and they're like, "Well, I just bought this over there." I'm like, "That's great," but like, it's why wild caught South Florida, which is fine if that's what you want, but I don't know if that's what you actually want. That's why it was $10.
Yeah, right. I think the real central thing, the thing I always think about is like that. I would like to be the person that kid buys a snake from instead of that guy that sells him a snake that's going to die because he just wanted to make a sale.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always thinking like that's kind of like my gold standard of a customer. Like, sure, they're not buying $3,000 snakes, but shit, they might breed snakes as they get older.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like you want to be the good breeder that the kid that saved up his allowance money, comes to, and he's gonna have a good experience, or they're gonna have a good experience. They're gonna be successful, and that is going to be good for the hobby because they're gonna want to continue to buy animals and keep animals and have good knowledge that they then pass on to other people. And I think you just gotta get viral with the good habits.
Fucking hosed. It buys something, it dies immediately. They never come back to another reptile show ever again.
That's what it's all about. How many people's entire careers are built on burning newbies out of this hobby?
A lot. And that's why they don't have like business cards or whatever, because they don't want the message. They just want to turn and burn as many snakes as possible,
Yeah, I ain't down with that. Not down with that at all.
Yeah, fuck them, says Scott.
Yeah.
I said that actually.
All right. That's fine. Whatever.
You do have to go to the banyo at the end here.
So my phone's going to die too. So.
Okay, good.
Do I just hang up now?
Well, let's just say goodbye to people. Say bye, everybody. Thanks for coming. Message Scott to buy some Hognose, or see him at a show very soon.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.